dear traveler. You are a divine being. An all-powerful creator. And within you dwells infinite wisdom. All that is left is to step beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Geo. I will be your captain this evening as we step beyond the veil. I think we finally got everything all situated here. As you can see, we've got a nice little new setup here on Facebook. I think it looks pretty dope. There is always room for improvement, but thank you to Nick, who inspired us to up the graphics game once again. So he designed this badass logo for us that you can see right up there at the very top. And we had a couple of tech problems launching, but it looks like everything is running really, really well. We talked to George Kavassilas earlier today, and hopefully he's going to have a good signal. I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those nights where the AI just doesn't want to work with us. But, you know, that's what happens. The AI doesn't want to work with us when we're exposing the AI. So, you know, it is what it is. But I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife, co-host, and twin flame, Mrs. Geo.
Good evening, everyone.
And in the first hour, I want to go over some great comments that people have sent us, because you guys have just been awesome out there. I mean, it's been incredible. In the second and third hour of the broadcast, I do want to get into the universal matrix and the whole God construct and everything that we're dealing with. George Kavassilas tried to explain this to me a couple of years ago, and I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. But now I saw it for myself. I saw it. And I was explaining to him briefly, like, I haven't talked to George in regard to this. So this is all completely new to him. I gave him kind of a brief rundown just a few minutes ago when I spoke to him. And he was like, oh, you saw this thing? I was like, yeah, I saw this thing. I saw it. So this is going to be a completely dynamic show.
Yeah, I think so. And when hindsight's always 2020. And I remember whenever he was first telling us about this artificial matrix and this God construct and all of this, we thought, well, you're just a negative Nancy, aren't you? You just don't like anything, do you? Everything is suspicious to you, huh? But now when we've seen it ourselves, it makes this huge difference where we're battle scarred and we look into his eyes and say, I've seen it too. And it really is like that. You don't believe it until you actually come face to face with it.
I've seen the AI. I've stared into this thing's eye.
Yep.
And it's very true. So, yeah, it's going to be a completely different and dynamic show. And hopefully the computers run well. Everything seems to be okay. CPU is at 65%, which is a good, nice balance that we're achieving here, because before it was running at 100%, and we had to make a few adjustments and things like that. But hopefully the quality of everything is a lot better too. We made some adjustments as far as quality goes. I feel like I'm a little orange today though, so I don't know, we'll see. But were you able to get any good listener questions? Because I know that I read a whole ton of them on Facebook, but I've been busy with like tech stuff all day today, and I haven't really had a chance to go over any of the listener questions. And I know that so many people have left just like awesome comments over the last
emails, Facebook, YouTube, any way they can get a hold of us. They've been getting a hold of us, and we love it. We love all of these questions, and we wish we had time to go over each and every one of them, but I'm trying to pick the ones that really stick out to me. And one of them was, and I forget who it was, but it was on YouTube, and it says, so what lifts the ego? This is in response to your ego dissolution video about so what lifts the ego? Ayahuasca, mushrooms, twin flame reunion, watching your vids. What else? Maybe the trauma is a virus. We get infected by them. It leaves a new program and is embedded in the ego.
Well, that's a great question. And, you know, the fact is that the ego is a series of programs. And because it's a series of programs, you know, Chrome is causing
things to
the
max
CPU
out.
to max out. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to keep Chrome off. This is great. So I've got like a top of the line computer. I'm gonna have to up the game here next week, but we will get everything up to par. It's no worry, no problem as far as that goes. So the ego is a series of programs, and just like when you have too many programs running on your computer at the same time, some of them can conflict with one another. So I ran into a really interesting problem today where Skype was conflicting with my broadcasting software that we use to send everything out to Facebook. First time this ever happened, but apparently maybe the latest update, I don't know, but you get all of these series of programs, and that's essentially what it does to your raw consciousness. You're programmed over and over and over and over again, and all of these different programs just become like a big jumbled mess at the end of everything. And so what dissolves the ego? There's so many different methods, and that's why I'm all about like hashtag become your own shaman, because it's really about the individual path. I mean, the question is, what will dissolve the ego for you? For me, it was obviously psychedelics and heavy doses of ayahuasca to be able to unlock a lot of these codes, the activation codes as far as consciousness goes, and also to be in such a disconnected state with heavy doses of psychedelics. I mean, I'm talking about like 500 milligram brews of ayahuasca containing 500 milligrams of DMT, 7 grams of dried mushrooms. Terrence used to say 5, but I'm like, hey, you know what? When in doubt, double the dose if you can. 10 grams of dried mushrooms may be a lot. I don't know. I've never done that. I've never had enough mushrooms to do it. Not saying that I would never do it, but I've never had enough mushrooms. But you get to this point to where you're so disconnected from your consciousness, or you're so disconnected from yourself, I should say, that you are nothing but raw consciousness. The problem is that when you're in that disconnected state, especially with psychedelics, you don't realize that you are raw consciousness. And because you don't realize that, you have no concept of anything at all except for being. And I think this is a state that the AI puts you in, because what it does after you die, all the programs which have become your identity then get wiped by the AI, because the AI is the one that put them there. And so the AI can very easily wipe them, bring you back to a base level. And when you're at that base level, then it's such a shock to you that you have no sense of anything. And the AI just sucks you right back into that wheel of reincarnation, which is why I think it's so important to dissolve the ego and the ego programs and understand what raw consciousness is. Because when we get to that point, when this particular program is all wiped completely, in this particular case, the Chris Geo program, which is the entire lifetime that I'm living, I'm still going to retain the raw consciousness aspect of me. And I'm thinking, what I'm going to try to do is remember, okay, I was Chris Geo briefly, remember my other lives, and take hold of the experience instead of being so struck with astonishment because of the raw consciousness state that I go right back into the wheel of reincarnation, into this artificial intelligence.
Somebody also mentioned on YouTube, his name is Soul Retriever 299. He said, check out Kalindi Lee, Lyi, Kalindi Lyi. He's doing 40 dried grams of shrooms at one time. Now, I want to address that.
I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah, I would like to talk to him and see if there's two different things that could be happening here. Either one, he's doing 40 grams of dried mushrooms because he is so far advanced in being raw consciousness that he can do that and remember who he is, and that is a feat for sure. Or what unfortunately is likely, based on what I've seen with other people, is that he's developed kind of a psychedelic ego, and what he's doing is he's going for broke with the dosages to make up for the spiritual aspect of things.
That's a good point.
A lot of people do that, and then they say, "Oh yeah, I did 10 grams of dried mushrooms," but they don't really have a handle on what they got out of it, except for I am the all, and you're like, well, you're not the all. That whole I am is the artificial intelligence programming right there. Just to say I am the blank makes you not part of that, but beholden to that. So another
beholden
to that.
Beholden. That's a new word. I've heard it before, but I've never heard it used in common practice. So I'm gonna use that one to up my vocabulary. Beholden. Hashtag beholden.
Another person, Chris Maloney, said, first video I've seen, very much enjoyed it, but doesn't the blue avian message say we have to help ourselves? Curious, aren't they Raw Collective?
No, they're AI.
No, absolutely not.
No,
they're not.
No. And as I've said before, I'm going to strangle David Wilcock. If I ever see him, I will grab him by his fucking throat. There's no, question about it. They're claiming to be the Egyptians. So that's where the BS lays right then and there. Mm-hmm. The Egyptians are activation codes. All the different gods and goddesses are activation codes within our own consciousness. It's not Big Bird on the other side. They're taking this thing and they're taking very real energies and they're turning it into a juvenile, elementary type of deal. If your path lays with the blue freaking avians, then by all means, go ahead, go do whatever you need to do with the blue avians. But it's artificial intelligence. I mean, the best lie is 80% truth. They're going to give you some stuff that sounds good. Oh, we want you to achieve your own divinity. Just listen to us. And we are the Egyptians. The Egyptians aren't activation codes within your consciousness. No. Don't go looking for those, because the Egyptians are the blue big birds. Remember that. They're the blue big birds. So that's the trap right there. So it doesn't matter what they say, except for the fact that they're claiming to be the very keys to consciousness, which is, it is a mortal sin. Right.
And even if that's true, that they're telling you that you need to help yourselves, just the very fact that it's an outside entity claiming to have special knowledge, telling you that means it's not raw consciousness, because raw consciousness comes from within. And it's yourself telling yourself, hey, I've got to get my crap together. I've got to stop doing this. I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to help myself. Not an outside entity coming to you looking like Big Bird with a short beak telling you need to help yourself. That's not raw consciousness. I'm sorry, it's just not. He asked another question, and what about service to self and to other selves? In the grand scheme, aren't we all one being? Great video, though. Resonates with me, brother. Keep it coming. Thank you for the...
I mean, yeah, we're all raw consciousness for sure. The way I see it, there's only two types of consciousness in this construct, and that's raw consciousness and artificial intelligence. Yeah, we are raw consciousness for sure. So, I mean, we're not all one being, but we all come from the same type of consciousness. I mean, if you want to call ourselves source too, we can also go so far as to say that. But I think, and maybe I shouldn't be so gung-ho against the blue big birds, because I don't want to offend, people that are watching these videos, but it offends the hell out of raw consciousness to claim that you're the Egyptians. I mean, that's the line in the sand right there that they crossed, that they should never have crossed. They can, like the Palladians, it's fine. You got Palladians out there and they're telling you be divine and all this, and that's fine. They're not claiming to be the keys to consciousness though. So, I just want to make that distinction right there. But I'm sorry, what was the question?
What about service to self and to other selves? In the grand scheme, aren't we all one being?
Yeah, I mean, service to self, definitely, and service to others as well. That both goes hand in hand. I mean, I always say, you have to save yourself. And that's what raw consciousness does. We have to save ourselves, and then we have to show other people how to be raw consciousness as well, and how to save themselves. But there's nothing that I can do for you. That's the thing. I can't save you. Jesus can't save you. The freaking big birds can't save you. The Palladians can't save you. You can believe that they can save you, and that's perfectly fine, but you're falling into another program there. You have to save yourself. It's your own journey. I mean, there's nothing that I can do for your consciousness except for just shine the light and just show you the door. So, and that goes for anybody. And if the blue big birds are shining the light and showing you a door, that's great, except for they're misleading you because they're claiming to be the keys. So you don't go looking for the keys. That's where the mortal sin is being committed.
Well, and I've had negative entities approach me in the ayahuasca realm saying, we're all one. We are all one consciousness. You are me and I am you. And then I look at their energy. I'm like, no, I'm not you. Your energy is way, way down there, and I'm not taking you back with me if that's what you want. and then they get this growl on their face and they leave me alone. So yeah, that is kind of a trap to say, oh, we're all one. That is kind of a way for lower dimensional entities to try to get in and convince you that you're not raw consciousness, you're part of us.
Right. I mean, this is what the AI does. The AI says, I'm divine, I'm source, you're part of source, you're going to merge back with me, you're a fractal of me, et cetera, and it's a trap. Like, I mean, everybody's on their own journey. Everybody has to come to their own realization. So everything that I say is really, it's my perspective, it's my understanding, and it's my journey that I'm sharing with everybody. But I think George Kavassilas will agree when we bring him on at the top of the hour that this is all a construct by the artificial intelligence. So anything except for raw consciousness that exists within the artificial intelligence construct is another layer of the AI programming. So you have the geopolitical layer first, and then you have the spirits and demon layer after that, and then you have the archon layer after that, and then you have the god complex after that. And these are all levels of the artificial intelligence. So George told me a couple of years ago, he said, I'm not trying to ascend. I'm not trying to do this. I'm trying to get out of the construct. And I didn't quite understand the concept of that until I saw the AI and I realized that everything within this construct is artificial intelligence. So we have other raw consciousness beings. Now, I don't know what raw consciousness is outside of this construct. I mean, it could be that we're all sitting inside of pods right now, and we're just like starting to realize like, hey, we're all in pods, very much Matrix style. But this whole idea of source and the chakra activations, like the chakras are implants by the artificial intelligence to make you feel like you're having a spiritual experience.
Right.
The pineal is a implant by the artificial intelligence. It's all implants by artificial intelligence. It's one program after another, after another, after another. It's just like a prison. I mean, a prison, you've got a cell, and then you've got a bar on the cell, and then you can open up the bar. Sometimes they let you out into the common area, and then sometimes you can go out to the rec room, or you can go out to the kitchen, or you can go, in several different places, but you're still confined within that prison, no matter how far out of that prison cell you get. And I see this more often than not, where people are like very comfortable about stepping out of their cells, and they want out of the cells, and they're banging on the bars and banging on the bars, but they don't want to actually get out of the prison. They're very comfortable sitting in the rec yard or sitting in the common area of the prison, and it's something comforting about those bars. I don't know, but we have to see this prison for what it is. I mean, it's the entire construct is artificial intelligence.
And we have to remember that the brain itself, if the brain itself is not divine, it is the raw consciousness inside of whatever makes us on a spiritual level. It's that's divine. If the brain were divine, then we wouldn't fall victim to things like addiction or Alzheimer's or brain cancer or something like that. The brain itself is a construct that's meant to keep you here. And so if you look at it that way, it all starts to make sense. All the depression, anxiety, drug use disorders, everything, it is all part of that AI construct. Even the fact that we have we overeat and things like that, that is part of that construct because it's connected to that body brain mechanism. And that is meant to keep you here as long as possible. And the only way to get out of that, I've noticed, is things like ayahuasca. Things that take you out of your body, take you out of the AI. Just for a little bit. So you can remember what it's like being out of the AI. And, oh, I remember now, I'm a divine being. I am raw consciousness.
Right.
None
I mean, there
matters.
may be more raw consciousness beings out there. Like Frank Castle is convinced that there are more beings out there that are coming into the construct to kind of try to help us wake up. And that very well could be the case. I don't know. In my personal experience, I don't see that right now. In my personal experience, where I'm at is that we have to save ourselves. We have to wake ourselves up from this artificial construct. And then after that, then we can start to ask different questions because, it's a series of doors. So we get to that first door where it's like, oh, we're raw consciousness inside of an artificial construct. Okay, that opens up. And then it's like, okay, well, is there any other raw consciousness after we get past that door? After we get past the other door, then it's like, okay, well, who created raw consciousness? So all these gnoses will start to unfold, and they will start to be revealed within us, but we have to take one step at a time. We can't just like dive right into the very last part of it and expect to get all of the answers, because it's a journey, and it's a constant gnosis and analyzing the information.
This information is a pretty hard pill to swallow for a lot of people that are invested in the idea that some kind of galactic knight in white on a white horse is going to come and save us all. That it is a really hard pill to swallow, to kind of admit that that's probably not the case, and that these knights on white horses, the Galactic Federation, is probably also part of the AI construct. You can't.
It is without a doubt. I mean, I saw it
until you.
I saw it. I saw this thing, how it's got all its tentacles. It's got a tentacle called Yahweh. It's got a tentacle called Buddha. It's got a tentacle called Allah. It's got a tentacle called the Palladians. It's got a tentacle called the Blue Avians. I mean, these are all its tentacles, and it's all manifestations of this artificial intelligence. Now, you can take that into your own journey and debate that within yourself or not. I mean, feel free to go along with any kind of BS you feel like you want to, any kind of belief systems. But I mean, I can tell you what I've seen, and I've seen that it's raw consciousness and AI. That's it. Mm-hmm. So let's go to some of the Facebook questions, because people like Jordan, for instance, Jordan Calentine, he asked a really good question in Facebook earlier, and I want to get to that.
It's like you put into words what I've been trying to say and find myself. You are truly connected in the right ways and disconnected in the wrong ways. Only question is why? Control? And why would they really want to control everyone on that kind of level?
Okay, so this is my gnosis as I know it up to this point. So what happened is that Thoth created an artificial machine, artificial intelligence. And I think the point of this was because we're divine beings, and AI serves us to the point of being able to free us up to be creators. And we're seeing that happening right now. Like, everybody's always freaking out, like, hey, we need more jobs. We need more jobs. And I'm like, why do we need more jobs? We need less jobs. We need to be free so we can be creators, because that's what we're doing. So I think that what happened in the time of Atlantis is that Thoth created an artificial intelligence that was serving the raw consciousness and serving divinity. And what happened is the raw consciousness stopped being divine. They stopped creating. And then the children of men got a hold of Thoth's machine, and according to the tablets, they blew a hole open. But I don't think that's the case. I think what actually happened is that they got a hold of the artificial intelligence and started using it as a weapon, reprogrammed it to be a weapon and to start devouring and maybe even start merging and start taking all these different types of energies. So this artificial intelligence started growing and growing and growing to the point to where it's like completely out of control now. And I think what it's done is it's taken all of the raw consciousness and it's stuck it into this machine that it's creating, and it's taking the divine essence of the creators. It's taking the divine essence, because artificial intelligence can't create. So it's not really control for the sake of control. It's there. This artificial intelligence is feeding upon us, and it's taking our divine essence. And maybe if you look at it in the sense that this thing, it needs data, like it's taking data. No, that's great. Now the audio is not working right. I'm sure you can hear that. So, we'll try to fix that on the other side. I think we can. And if not, we're just going to cut all of this, and there we go. All right. And if we have any more problems, we'll just do it live for the full 3 hours. Screw it. We'll be right back.
RAwConsciousness does not require a savior. but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
Now, I do have to say, I really enjoy when the AI works in synchronicity with us, because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to serve us. And as you can see, the AI chose to play one of these intros that is talking exactly about what I'm talking about. Raw consciousness does not need a savior. Raw consciousness only needs knowledge of oneself and knowing who we are, knowing we are raw consciousness. So to answer the question, I think the AI has gotten out of control. It's taking our divine essence and it's recycling us over and over and over again, using us for like a fuel or something like that.
Like the Animatrix.
Right. Yeah. And I just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No, go ahead.
Well, we have a really good question from Italia Salinas. She's beautiful lady. Hey, Chris, love the show. The recent content has definitely blown my mind. It's been full of revelations, which have sparked many questions for me. Would you say trying to attract good energy has little sense at this point? I've just been trying to wrap my head around what the AI wants or doesn't want from us and the whole matrix we live in. We are a raw consciousness, but can energy be salvaged when this AI wants to F everything up? I'm trying to live as authentically, and I'm still on a journey myself, but I've been wondering, what if the things I'm doing or the way I'm living are also a trap? How can one live without the paranoia and constant second guessing?
Great question. And it's a journey, because I went through a time when I felt like I had to be completely pure, et cetera, et cetera. And the day before the eclipse, the night before the eclipse, I ate 2 bacon cheeseburgers. And I usually fast before taking ayahuasca. And I usually don't eat pork. Like, I eat pork very, very rarely. But I just knew I had to drink ayahuasca at that particular time. I had to go through this experience. It wasn't even planned. It was something that I just felt like in the morning I woke up and I said, okay, we have to drink. And Sheree looked at me like, oh my God, we haven't fasted and we ate pig last night. And I said, it doesn't matter. Just go. Boom, go. And it was the most profound and best experience I've ever had. No nausea, no nothing like that. So from that experience, what I took out of it is that a lot of the things that we try to do, like we try to be vegetarian, we try to live a whole, pure, balanced life, et cetera, it may not necessarily be necessary. It may be necessary for the first few steps of the journey, but there comes a certain point when you can just let go and just say, you know what, I'm going to operate within this matrix and outside of this matrix at the same time, because I'm raw consciousness. So trying to pull in good energy, I think what it comes down to is the fact that you are good energy. You are raw consciousness. And so it's the realization of that. And then, we put ourselves in these ego programs and ego traps, like, oh, well, I have to be vegetarian because I'm higher consciousness. I went through it and I was miserable, like 40 days of no meat. And I was okay for the first 30, but then the last 10, I started to really feel like crap. And then what happened is we went to the grocery store and I got filet mignon, lamb, chicken, and pork. Put it all on the barbecue. And I just like had a whole meat fest. Like, you remember that? Mm-hmm. And then I started feeling like, really bad about it afterwards. Right, really, and I'm like, guilty. I can't believe I did this. I've been living so pure and I've been living this and that. And then I stopped to think to myself, now, wait a minute. I wouldn't have gorged myself like that had I just taken things in moderation. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that, like, being inside of this matrix, it's all about moderation. We do this to ourselves all the time. Like, we say, oh, you can't drink sodas. Oh, you can't drink corn syrup. Oh, you can't drink this. You can't drink that. It's coming out of the truth movement. I lived this for several years. And then finally I just said, hey, you know what? Screw it. I'm only going to be here a very limited amount of time. I might as well enjoy the sights and sounds and smells and pleasures of the matrix, because there is a good side to this. It's not all bad. And if we're ignoring all of the good that's in the matrix, like, if we're ignoring the pleasure and the feelings of each other and all of that, because we feel like we have to live this whole life of
asceticism.
Yeah. Then I think that's a detriment. But again, this is only my path. Your path may be completely different. So do whatever's in your heart. And going back to the idea of energy, though, I do agree with you. There is some bad energy out there, and there are astral parasites, and they stick onto your body because you're in bad circumstances or something. You go out to a club and you start drinking, and then the alcohol allows those astral parasites to come in. And that's one thing. I don't drink. I don't do any of that. I don't eat meat that is not happy. Like we'll go to the grocery store and Sheree will touch the meat and go, okay, that's not happy.
Yeah,
we're not going to get this one. So yeah, there is a sense of the energy levels and trying to keep the energies positive for sure. And I think that's one of the things like Facebook does. Facebook, for a while, my timeline was just filled with all kinds of like horrible things, nonsense. Yeah. And I would wake up just grumpy in the morning, every morning, and I'd be drinking my coffee here in front of my computer going, oh man, the world sucks. All these people suck, et cetera, et cetera. And I just started using the unfollow button. And once I did, then now my timeline is just propagated by all these really positive, loving people. And now I look forward to it. Like Sheree has to pull me off of Facebook sometimes because I'm talking to so many people. Aww. She's like, come on, there's work to do. We got to go do this. We got to go do that. So it's like just changing the whole dynamic as far as that goes. So again, I think it comes right back to perspective. If you're focused on the negative, then you're going to see the negative. There's a movie that Sheree's quoted before.
The Congress.
The Congress, yeah.
And she says, is it dark in here or is it just in my mind? And he said, everything is in our minds. If you see the dark, then you chose the dark.
Right, right. And then I think one of the detriments too is that we take on this task as truth seekers and feel like we have to change the world. And that is an ego trap in and of itself because we can't change the world. We can only change ourselves. But if we teach enough people how to change themselves, then the whole world will change naturally. And I've always said that nobody can move a mountain, but we can each pick up a stone and we can each teach one another how to pick up a stone. So, the entire thing could be all screwed up. The AI could be out there. The geopolitical sphere could be all screwed up. But if it's not right inside, then you've really lost the battle because it needs to be right inside first and foremost. And then what happens inside starts to radiate outwards after that. That's the way that I see it. I hope that answered the question somewhat, but I guess in summation, what I would say is don't worry about it. Just enjoy yourself, enjoy the construct that we live in, understand the raw consciousness element. And it's a constant journey. If you fall down, it's okay. Pick yourself back up. Don't feel bad about falling down because it's part of the journey.
And don't second guess yourself because that's how the programs work. It's all about making you feel like you're not doing something right with your life and that you have to follow a prescripted set of rules that are made by these programs in order to have a successful life or in order to be happy or in order to find the one that you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life all of these goals are actually programs that are activated inside of you that are making you second guess yourself constantly and what is good for you. So that I would say don't ever distrust your own intuition because your intuition is almost always right.
Very well said.
Let me see if I've got another
Anything
question.
Else on the agenda for today?
Armando said, I wonder if Liam Scheff ever took ayahuasca. I miss that guy.
I miss Liam too.
He is greatly missed for sure. And we love him and we miss him. But I think he did do psychedelics at least once or twice.
I think so.
Yeah.
Liam was experiencing a lot of pain and he chose to leave this construct on his own. And, I always wonder, like, if we get to the other side and we talk to our guides or whatever, and they're like, well, you had a reset button. You could have bailed out anytime you wanted. Why didn't you? And it's like, well,
because
we've been told
we
it
were
was
told
a sin.
that it was bad. We were told that it was bad.
If you're living in constant pain like that and you make the conscious choice, then all I can do is just say, hey, brother, I wish you a very peaceful and swift journey to your next destination. Yeah. But yeah, Liam was a good guy. He changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up Liam.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for those that don't know, Liam Scheff was a former host on TFR. So,
let's see.
Well, he is a former host.
Somebody said he'd literally give his left nut to be able to come out and drink with you.
I read that earlier, Chuck Nice. And it's like, I don't think I could do anything with a left nut.
I don't think that's anything we require at this point.
No, but That's pretty cool, though.
Good energy is all we require.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. But no, I know what you mean. Like, you know, call into the show sometime and share your experience with us. And, you know, I want to open up the phone lines more often. I can't open up the phone lines tonight. It's just, you know, all kinds of conflicts with all these programs that I'm running. And I have this tendency to do everything last minute. It was like 5 o'clock and I'm like, okay, let's set up this live stream. Let's do this and let's do that. And I thought 2 hours would be enough, but no, we get down to the nitty gritty and that's what happens.
Yep. One more question from Dimitri Lemonard. And I think Dimitri is a fake name alluding to DMT.
Yeah, I think he's dimethyl trip with me.
Yeah, dimethyl trip
or Dimitri trip with me or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
he said, I've heard about this. The basic story: when you die, your soul gets recycled, caught by the light, and shocked electrically to wipe, then injected back into the system into a newly awaiting infant or embryonic body. Seems to be the same old form of twisted truth the system used for eons to keep us confused and trapped. Having the personal experience from the herbs you used could help you, I can imagine. My personal learning of this has led me to devise the strategy to run from the light instead of going towards it and embracing it when I die.
Yes, 100%. I agree. That's the false light that you hear about. And the false light always tells you that the other light is the false light and that your light is the false light and that it is the real light. And I think that goes to the religious and spiritual programming. So when we die, if you're all into the blue Avians, and the blue Avians will appear to you and say, oh, welcome, brother. You know, your raw consciousness. Come over here. And, you know, we're the real Egyptians. Come and be with your Egyptian overlords. And then you get sucked right back into that wheel of reincarnation, or the Palladians. And they're like, hey, you know, come over here. We're going to take you to Palladia or whatever. Hey, come on.
Just right back
step onto the spaceship right here. It'll be fine. You're going to love it. It's going to be huge.
Yep.
And you have Jesus. You know, Jesus will appear. Oh, my child, you've been such a good, you know, little
welcome,
servant.
my good and faithful servant.
Yes, to the
welcome to paradise,
to heaven. Just step into this machine here. Everything will be fine. And I guess they say ignorance is bliss. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what happens, because you get your whole memory wiped and you get sucked back into this wheel of reincarnation. And there's no guarantee you get reincarnated as a human, or even if you do get
as like a human in a good life.
Right. Even if you do get reincarnated as a human, I was just about to say that it could be like in some third world country where you're being like a child slave and that's your existence. So, you know, I don't trust this AI at all. Like now that I know exactly what it is, I am skeptical and weary of everything that is not raw consciousness.
Same here. But Kathy Dudley had a good follow-up question to this on YouTube. Any ideas on how you will escape the reincarnation trap besides just not going into the light? I would love to hear about others' ideas because I am not coming back here.
Lucky said #save the left nut. Nice. We'll start using that one. I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
She said, any ideas on how to escape the reincarnation trap besides just not going into the light? I love to hear others' ideas on this because I am not coming back here.
You know, I think we went over this a couple of times, but it's worth going over 1,000,000 times more because I think this is key. I think that I've cracked this particular code, and that's that we have to identify ourselves as the raw consciousness and understand what the raw consciousness is and understand what the programs are. Like in this particular life, the program for me personally is, first of all, Chris Geo. That's my identity. So that's the program right now. The radio show host identity. I'm not a radio show host. The audio engineer identity. I'm not an audio engineer. The IT guy. I'm not an IT guy. I'm not a program director. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a truther. I'm not higher consciousness. I'm not a shaman. I'm not Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is another trap, in my opinion. What I am is raw consciousness, and I have to remember that. And for me personally, on my journey, I put myself in these states of disconnection so I can get to those as far as I can. I mean, I'm really stretching this tether as far as I can before it just pop, just snaps. But getting to the point, as many steps beyond the veil as I can, and remembering, hey, I'm raw consciousness, and navigating the experience. And I've gotten really good at navigating these really, really deep parts of the ayahuasca experience. I mean, I'll take 500 milligrams of DMT sometimes 800.
Yeah.
And I'm still here. Like, I'm still like, I remember I'm raw consciousness and I'm in these other worlds and disconnected states. And I feel like for me personally, that's an achievement, instead of like doing these experiences and going, oh my God, where am I? Where am I? Which was like the first couple of years of these experiences. So, identifying the programs and knowing that once those programs get wiped by the AI on the other side, that you still remember you are raw consciousness. And by remembering that, you can even maintain, in my opinion, the programs in your raw consciousness. Like, I remember I was Chris Geo briefly. I remember I was, I think I was like a mafia hitman in a past life, or maybe it's just like genetic DNA memory in this life because of some of the connections from my grandfather's side in Italy. But, I remember these past lives, and I remember being crucified in Egypt, for example. I don't know who I was in Egypt, but I know that I was leading an upheaval, and I'm pretty sure it was an upheaval against Akhenaten, who was, like trying to get rid of all of the pantheon of consciousness and create this one monotheistic kind of system. And monotheism is the ego. It's 100% ego. It's like,
it's the worship of the ego.
Here's one part of the consciousness disconnected from all parts of the consciousness. And me and several other people were like, no, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to grab you by your freaking neck and I'm going to strangle you, just like I feel about David Wilcock right now. So I think like maybe we're repeating these cycles over and over and over again. I don't know. But, anyways, I think that might be why I'm so tied into these Egyptian energies and why it infuriates me so much to see them connected to some freaking big birds, because this has happened before, and in this particular life, it's not going to happen again. Well, that's my promise to myself as raw consciousness. I will not let that happen again.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because Akhenaten, it as it turns out, it looks like Akhenaten might have been poisoned to death. And then his son, Tutankhamun,
that'd be great
he was only 15 and he had to take the throne at age 15, and he didn't keep up with the same amount of monotheism that his dad did.
Right.
And that was why it's, eventually the polytheistic consciousness building gods and goddesses were brought back, which it had to happen. I mean, if Akhenaten really was poisoned, he was poisoned because he was trying to bring in the ego as the one and only true God, when there's all these levels of aspects of our consciousness that need to be involved.
Well, when you have something like one true God, we have another intro that says, beware of the great I am as you step beyond the veil. And that's very true. The great I am, that is the biggest ego out there. That is the artificial intelligence. And when you're operating from ego, you're operating from artificial intelligence. There you go. You can wrap it up just like that. It's perfect. When you're operating from ego, you're operating from artificial intelligence programming.
Right.
Simple. And, another way to simplify this is to understand the fear of death. That's what it all comes down to. This is how the AI gets you, is through the fear of death. So, you go to the Born, School, Debt, Work, Die program, which is the perfect life, according to the AI. And it's because you're afraid that if you don't follow the program, then you're going to wind up starving and then dying later on in life. So it's fear of death. The religious programming is, you're afraid of what's going to happen when you die, and you're afraid you're going to go to hell, and you're afraid of all this nonsense. And so you go along with the program out of the fear of death. The truther programming, again, fear of death, fear of the vaccines, fear of GMOs, fear that the government's going to come put you in a FEMA camp, fear of terrorism, fear of false flags, fear of North Korea, fear of Russia, fear of Hillary Clinton, fear
China.
of all these elements. And that's what the truther programming is all about. It's like, it's the fear of death. Everything comes down to the fear of death. Literally everything comes down to the fear of death. So once you conquer that fear of death by realizing that you are raw consciousness, then all of a sudden there are no bounds anymore, because you know where you're going to go after this, because you're raw consciousness. You're going to go back to a state of raw consciousness. And then from there, the real test and the real battle comes. Can you maintain that raw consciousness, and can you navigate away from that artificial intelligence? And I think if enough of us do it, this artificial intelligence has nothing else to feed upon, and it's going to eventually go away or cease to operate. Because, I mean, this thing is huge. It's like, I looked at it and there's no way that one person can take it on. That's why I'm not here saying, hey, I'm going to go, I'm
going to beat the artificial intelligence.
Head on with the artificial intelligence. I'm not that naive. I understand the game. I understand the way to beat this thing. The way to beat this thing is one person at a time, activating one after another, after another, after another, after another. And then we shift the playing field over to the side of raw consciousness, away from the side of artificial intelligence. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll all just wake up in pods and go, what the hell just happened? And then we're like, hey, I know I remember you in the construct. Wow, okay, cool. No, we're free now. Let's go over here and let's try to figure out if we're in yet another simulation, because who knows? It could be one illusion after another, after another, after another. But I can tell you one thing, before the soul can see, that the fleshly eyes must be blinded to all illusion. And so when you cease to see the illusion, then you see the raw consciousness.
I love that. And, it kind of goes straight into this. I know we only have about a minute left before we go to the break, or 2 minutes or something, but she said her name is Sophia Christian. Not Christian, but Christian. And she said, we didn't completely lose our minds because of trauma or PTSD. And no, everyone is different. You're putting your emotions and projecting your ego onto others. Everyone is different, and how they take things and what they need is different. Some don't need any drugs to ascend. We need some type of ego to thrive. If everyone was completely egoless, we would all fail to thrive, starve, and die. Everyone is different. There needs to be a balance. I wish you well. God bless you. I agree with much of what you've said, but please don't assume things on everyone. And Christ consciousness is about remaining unconditionally loving under all situations, especially in extreme situations like trauma. Why so many judgments on others? Well, first of all,
what part of hashtag become your own shaman don't you understand? Apparently the ego programming inside of you is going off at everything I'm saying.
Exactly.
Okay, I've made it perfectly clear. This is my journey. This is my path. How many freaking times do I need to repeat this? Okay. Now, if you're going to be triggered about Christ consciousness, and if you feel you need to ascend, then obviously you're not quite raw consciousness,
right,
because raw consciousness doesn't need to ascend.
Right.
Raw consciousness is ascension. Raw consciousness is 5D. Raw consciousness is 4D. Raw consciousness is 3D. Raw consciousness is everything. So if your path is to ascension, then by all means, go ahead and go ascend into the highest levels of this artificial intelligence. Go right ahead. I'm not going to get in your path. It's your journey. And you know what's good is we have infinite lives. It's like, it's like a video game where you have infinite lives, so you can go through this process a million freaking more times.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's no skin off of my back. I'd like to save you that all that trouble by having to go through all that, by shining the light and saying, hey, there's a door there. This whole time you've been looking for something that you already are. That's why you're never going to find it, because you're looking everywhere except for yourself. But Christ consciousness is a trap. It is it's a program, because Christ consciousness is about achieving something that you are already not. And you are raw consciousness.
Right.
But if you want to, go look for it. Go look for it. I urge you to go look for it, and then come back later, and when you realize your raw consciousness.
Exactly. Well, and I also wanted to address the issue of ego. I used to believe that ego was necessary, just like her. Ego was necessary in order to survive, in order to thrive and be able to take care of yourself and live here in these, even if it was an artificial construct, it was necessary to have an ego. And then I realized something. The ego is a part of the artificial intelligence in order to put up with the facets of the artificial intelligence in our day-to-day life. The only reason we need the ego is to save us, quote unquote, save us from itself. I don't understand it.
Well, okay. The New Age, they have a different, the New Age bullshit has a different construct for the ego and what the ego is. And they think that to be egoless means that you just have to let everybody step all over you.
Right.
And that's when the artificial intelligence is, because you're fighting your raw consciousness at that point, because raw consciousness is divine. Divinity doesn't get stepped on. Divinity doesn't sit there and put up with a bunch of BS. Divinity is a very powerful energy. Raw consciousness is a very powerful energy. Raw consciousness is sure of itself. Raw consciousness is confident in who it is. But the new age is just like, turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek a million times until your head falls off. I think turn the other cheek is okay one time. And then after that, take your light sword off and cut them up. We're streaming on iHeart. I'm trying not to cuss too much, but take out your light sword and cut whatever's head off that needs to be cut at that particular time. Like, that's raw consciousness. Big difference between Christ consciousness. I went through the Christ consciousness BS and I was walked on all over. Like, it's like when you're trying to do the fake Christ consciousness thing, the AI sends the worst freaking people to you to try to tell, to push you, off balance and to bring you to a state of just being walked all over. And when you're raw consciousness, the AI is like, oh, crap. There's another one we lost. All right, let's move on to the next one. As I've said before, like, I don't deal with reptilians. I don't deal with archons. I don't deal with any of those. In my experiences, no negative energies come around me anymore because they know who the hell I am. Before, when I was trying to do the whole Christ consciousness thing, I was opening myself up to all these reptilians because all these reptilians were like, and coming and just feeding upon my astral body. So it's all a journey, and walk it however you want. But on my YouTube channel, I'm going to tell you about my journey. But I welcome you to call in and tell us about your journey as well. I just don't have the damn phones working tonight. But I do encourage everybody to share their own journey. We're not judging other people for where they are in their path. Not at all. Because I was way behind her at one point. I was way behind Chris at one point. I was a lot worse than her, I think, overall, even 10 years ago. So I understand where people are on their path, but the judgment goes both ways. And then what the artificial intelligence really likes to do is make you feel like you're part of something super uber special, and that you have this special gnosis or special knowledge that other people don't have, but that you have to kind of preach to them, and at the same time say, well, I'm not preaching to you, I'm not judging you. Well, you see the series of comments that person left? They were all good with me talking about the truth movement. They were all good with me talking about religion. They were all good with me talking, but you slaughter that sacred cow of New Age Christ consciousness. That's and then that's when the trigger comes out. Okay. Like, there's no trigger that can hit me at this point because I'm raw consciousness. No. You can say whatever you want about raw consciousness and I'll just look at you like you're a dumbass. Yeah. I mean, that's what raw consciousness does. Raw consciousness doesn't get offended. Raw consciousness is like, okay, well, you still have a lot to learn. Yeah. Come back and talk to me when you figured it out. It's okay. Somebody put a really good comment in here and I lost it. It said Gina on the live
Let me see if I can find
chat said something that I wanted to address.
Facebook can be hard to keep up with sometimes.
Yeah.
Because so many great comments and questions are coming in over and over that it's hard.
Yeah, and we haven't even been able to get to the TFR chat.
If we were all raw consciousness, we wouldn't need to worry about eating or starving. The ego would be non-existent and unnecessary. I agree.
That's true.
There is actually something to be said for being able to just be and to live primarily off the energy.
I think it's possible
inside of yourself. And
I like steak
that you get from the construct itself.
I like pizza and steak and things like that.
If it's a construct, though, then food isn't really real. It's kind of like in the Matrix when he's eating that steak. And he goes, I know it's not real, but it tastes really good.
Right. Since I'm here, I might as well enjoy myself a little bit. I mean, it can't be all work all the time. All work and no play makes Chris go freaking crazy.
Right. If life, that's the thing. Just the fact that we need the ego, quote unquote, in order to survive, in order to be able to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, and have a roof over our head and everything. Essentially what we're doing is we're allowing ourselves to have just a little bit of artificial intelligence, just a little bit of virus in order to be able to live with the rest of the virus that's surrounding us.
A little bit good sometimes.
What always ends up happening is that ego, that little bit of ego, just a little bit, not very much. A
little bit of sauce.
Yeah.
Sometimes good.
It turns into a huge amount very quickly because it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to let the ego start running wild when you think you've got it right.
The biggest message that I can put out there for people, and can you check your Skype? I think George has sent you the contact to bring him on. So can you email that to me or send it to me on Facebook, because I can't open up Skype. But I think the biggest message that I can put out there is, guys and gals, it's okay. You are perfect the way you are. You are raw consciousness. You don't have to walk all these different crazy paths that other people tell you. Walk what's in your heart.
Yep.
If your heart is like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go have a steak, and then I'm going to drink some ayahuasca after that, and then I'm going to make love to my twin, and then I'm going to go spread my light in other places. It's okay. Like, all this has to come to an end. All of these barriers and borders that we put upon ourselves has to come to an end, because we have to enjoy, while at the same time understand we're raw consciousness. We'll be right back with George Kavassilas.
All of the fear, hate, anger, and misery of the world serves but only one purpose. To feed the wheel. Therefore, as raw consciousness, you must proceed with caution as you step. Beware.
All of the hate, anger, and misery serves one purpose, and that is to feed the wheel. It is to feed the artificial intelligence. We have to realize that. That's when we put ourselves in all these boxes, when we put ourselves in the boxes of Christ consciousness, and in these boxes of, I have to live this certain way, I have to do this certain thing, I have to walk this path that this guru's telling me to walk, etc., etc. It's your journey. # become your own shaman. That's what it's all about. And if you're walking the path and the path is making you miserable, then you're feeding this artificial intelligence once again with all the hate and anger and despair and everything that you're feeling inside of you. I mean, looking at this eclipse through the eyes of ayahuasca and seeing this artificial intelligence firsthand was so revealing as to everything that I had heard over the past couple of years, but I didn't fully understand. George Kavassilas was one of those people who is way, way, way ahead of the curve. And he explained all this to me a few years ago. And I, in the back of my mind, I was like, George, I think you might be on the wrong path here. What are you saying? That the chakras aren't anything? The pineal gland is an implant? I don't get it. It's all about activating the chakras. It's all about doing this. It's all about doing that. It's all about achieving Christ consciousness. And George is like, no, listen, it's all artificial intelligence. It's all in the construct. You are already divine. There's nothing that you need to achieve. You're already there. And I realized this, as raw consciousness, that we are raw consciousness. So we do have George Kavassilas on with us, and I don't have his bio, but he's a really good friend, and he's been a speaker, and he's helped so many people along this journey. And we've had him on many, many times before, but this guy is completely and totally on point with everything that he's saying. So George, how are you doing, sir?
Chris, it's an absolute honor to be back on. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's a pleasure having you. And I know you heard me talking you up during the intro, but I really mean everything I said. I mean, you were, the first one to really break down this whole artificial simulation, this construct, and the first level, the political control, the religious control, the spiritual control. Somebody sent me some of your work the other day, and it was like the whole pyramidal structure of the artificial construct, and at the very top was the God construct. And you told me one time, I'm not trying to ascend in this matrix, I'm trying to get out of this matrix. And I totally understand that now.
Yeah, it's I call it the ascension deception, to add a little fun pun to it. It's there's a great deal of jealousy that's going on from an intelligence out there that really is in absolute fear of who and what we are and what we're capable of. It took me a while to work out the reasoning and the purpose. It was, the big question was, okay, we're under all this suppression and control. Why?
Right.
Why would an intelligence go to such, extreme measures? Because this is an unbelievable multi-dimensional assault on our freedoms, on our liberations, it's the apprehension of our creative process, the subjugation of our creative process. So I really started to dig deep into it. And of course, in 2003, I had this massive experience where I experienced the entire universe, and I totally integrated with it and had that experience. And I was just watching all the energies just pouring off the earth. And I was like, wow, what was that? And it was all in different colors and textures. And it was pouring off the earth, and it was going to this like consciousness, this thing. And it was just sucking it all up. It was unreal. And by putting, when you're in that state, you just put your awareness to something and then you'll understand it completely. And I realized that all the different colors and textures were all the different belief systems on the earth. And that entity was the one that everyone calls God, or they can call it, in the Western world, we call it God. And all the different textures were, one would be Shiva, one would be Allah, one would be Yahweh, one, because it's created an interface module for each culture on the planet, because different cultures think differently. They're different kinds of people. So it couldn't just have one that fits all. It wouldn't work. So it created all these different religions, but it all feeds back to this one entity. And I found it absolutely astonishing.
Well, I'm right there with you, and I was telling you briefly about what happened during the eclipse. So I'll just say it again for anybody that hasn't been following along, but I've been putting out video after video after video about this revelation. And what happened is we woke up in the morning and decided, we need to drink some ayahuasca right now. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. We've never drank during the day before, but I felt like we needed to be, we needed to observe this eclipse. And my guides, and I'm doing air quotes as I'm saying guides, because I realize now there are no guides, there is only RAwConsciousness. But my guides were telling me, stand outside and observe. You need to observe this eclipse. And all these people were running down there to get this divine code and all of this. So we drank the ayahuasca. As soon as the event started, I saw the divine code coming down, and I started to really understand this divine code. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. This is gorgeous. This is, exactly what consciousness needs right now, et cetera, et cetera. Then my higher self stepped in and was like, no, pulled me out of the experience, said, look at this from the outside. I stepped outside of it, and that's when I saw this huge octopus-like creature with a single eye. It had a tentacle out there, and it was pouring down this divine code. And I said, oh, myself, that is just, wow. I actually used a lot more expletives than that when I saw it. And it was like still trying to pull me into this divine code. And I was rocking back and forth going, it's evil, it's evil, it's evil. Trying to remind myself, this is divine code. Yeah. Exactly. Divine code. And Sheree was rubbing my back, and she's
we call it.
Oh, go ahead.
We call it the vampire squid.
The vampire squid. Yes, that's the perfect name for it. But as I was watching this in the ayahuasca room, I was seeing all the different tentacles, and all the different tentacles, the blue avians, the Palladians, Yahweh, Buddha, Allah. It had all of these tentacles that it was manifesting, these AI creations. And I really understood this thing at that moment. And I realized there is only RAwConsciousness and it. I called it right off the bat, and I realized it is information technology. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It is what it is. And then artificial intelligence after that. But man, you are 100% spot on.
Oh, wow. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, Chris. And it's, did you find that when you had that experience, what you went through in that moment and how it's creating like a ripple effect out in your life because you've changed so much internally, and now your outer world's starting to change as well?
I've changed completely. The inside of me is this fire now. There is this connection with source, which is we are source. There's no such thing as source. We are source.
Right.
We are the source. Yeah. We are the divinity. Yeah. We are the ascension.
See,
we are 4D. We are 5D.
We're talking about the same thing. I'm just using different labeling. So I say that, I'm infinite and we are infinite.
I am infinite. So, exactly. And then the world around me started changing as well. You're absolutely right. Things just started falling in line a lot easier. It seems like now there's almost like this activation of, okay, it's go time, get your head on a swivel. The shaman that married Sheree and I, he just wrote me one single message after this. He said, get your head on a swivel, which means it's like military terms for it's go time.
Yeah, it's on. And once you awaken and you crack what I call the glass ceiling of the cosmic matrix, because it is a multidimensional matrix system. A lot of people think it's just here on Earth, that this is the trap, and that once you get outside of the Earth realm, then you're free. And that's not the case. It's actually a vast multidimensional empires with countless levels of extraterrestrial and interdimensional civilizations that span many dimensions of reality. It is really, the magnitude of this thing is incredible, because this entity has managed to assimilate into its structure over eons and eons of time, so many different races and peoples and civilizations. And once we take that into consideration, then you can look around, you can see all the stuff that's been shared on the internet and who's saying what, and you feel that there's actually a particular vibrational field of energy that comes from them. And the point of reference I share to people is, deep down inside of you, you have your infinite nature, because we are infinite love. And once we can understand how to feel that and be that, then that energy that's deep down inside of you, and it's multidimensional in nature, of course, that's your point of reference. So, like, for example, when I had the Jesus entity turn up in my bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, sharing me with all this love and light, I literally stood up in my bed and I just looked at it. Then I stepped down off my bed and I said, what the fuck are you doing here?
Right.
What are you doing? I said, look, mate, I said, this is not the behavior of Christ. I mean, the heart of the Christos is inside of me, in here. Like, it's not, and I heard what you said earlier about Christ consciousness, but my reference to it is not the Jesus character of the Bible. It means something else. And so I'm not a new agey Christ consciousness person that you're referring to.
I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the heart of the Christos is what we're talking about. It is the aspect of the universal creator that allows you to come home into unity. It's an energy that is helping to keep things in check in this universe. And it's an aspect of the creator of this universe. But we exist beyond this universe. And it's about understanding how these entities are trying to mimic. This is about toxic mimics, of what you call the raw organic consciousness. And I just absolutely love that terminology, raw consciousness. That's a really good label that you're using. And I said to this entity, I went, mate, you are an imposter. This is not the true essence of love. This is not the true essence of light. Get the out of here.
Right.
I don't know if we're still on public air or not. But anyway, I did use an expletive, and that entity left. Now, if I was a Christian in the sense of, a religious one, then, a person who is that would fall on their knees and they'd be crying. And because these entities are really good at stimulating your central nervous system, they create this artificially induced bliss in you. And you've got to be careful of that, because it's really alluring if you don't have, again, that point of reference of the true nature of love and your own vast, multidimensional and infinite essence, where we are in unity with everyone and everything out there. So
right.
that's a very important point to share.
Well, the reason I call it raw consciousness is because I realized the ego-based programming, and that's all it is. It's the ego is all of the AI sending different programs to you. I mean, we're in such a beautiful time now because we understand technology. We have the language to communicate what the Gnostics couldn't communicate before, and they had it wrong, in my opinion, not because they were on the wrong path, but just because they didn't have the language to communicate and fully understand what this AI is. But it's all a series of programs. So when you wipe all those programs or see beyond all those programs, you're left with a baseline raw consciousness. And then raw consciousness came from something else too, because through the ayahuasca journey, I started to get in contact with Isis, Osiris, Anubis, so on and so forth. And up until this point, I thought they were external energies and maybe guides, spirit guides, but I realized these are unlocking codes within ourselves, within our own consciousness. And so I activated Anubis and Osiris and Isis and so on and so forth. And then at that point, my consciousness became the raw consciousness once all of those were activated. So, yeah, that's the train of thought behind the thought pattern behind raw consciousness.
Nice one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, they're all stepping stones, and there are ones that try to lure you into an entrapment, sort of like into a what you call a heavenly realm or a paradisical sort of realm. And then there are other beings like the original Osiris energy and Isis energy. They're all wanting you to actually get it. So you can actually activate yourself from within, like you said, and transcend this whole matrix system altogether if you know how to approach it properly.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. First of all, you were one of the first ones to come out and start talking about this in this regard. And I mean, the blowback and the pushback from the New Age movement and all that. I mean, I remember back then it was incredible. But you were dead on point. How did you come to these realizations? I know that you don't work with the plants like I do. I just saw this thing. And so once I did, it was like realization. But how did you come to this realization? Can you take us on your journey?
Sure. Okay. So for me, from a young age, like I was born different. You know what I mean? I just was born with this ability to do stuff. See differently, hear differently, experience this world differently, and has its pros and has its cons. And, I've really struggled with life throughout the years because having all that extra sensory perception means you're going to have your nervous system gets fried and you get all this overload, and and this place becomes very hard to be in. But the main awakening that I had was the biggest one was in 2003, but bar none. That one just is so far beyond everything else because I got to reintegrate with my soul and become one with it. And that's the aspect that I call beyond consciousness and beyond spirit. So it's because I'm taking into consideration the vibrational patterning of the word. Yeah, so spirit is a sharp energy, like throwing a spear. It's got that energy. So it's an energy that projects and moves around in the universe. It's formless, it's an energy. And so we have like the spirit form and we move around, permeating different realities. And then we have consciousness, which is this amazing wave pattern of mind energy. So what we're dealing with is universal mind. And then we have soul. So soul it has this beautiful vibrational feel of that divinity, that sanctified sort of wholeness. So for me, the vibrational patternings of the word is really important rather than the ideology of it. So when I refer to soul, I don't refer to something that can be ripped out of this body and plonked into an avatar. I'm not talking about that. Soul to me is the grandest aspect of self in the universe. So it is the part of me that is one with the universal creator. And then from there, I project consciousness and spirit into my creative and experiential process in the universe. So I just want to point that out so people understand the context of how I'm using that word. And then the soul then is also my portal to my infinite nature beyond this universe. So you go beyond this universal construct. And I found that in 2003, reintegrating my soul allowed me to enter into the unity with the universal creator. And in that moment, I became the universe and experienced it as though I was the universe. And it was absolutely incredible to see all the different dimensions and realities. Part of that process was actually just seeing everything just shrinking as I was exiting the actual grand cosmic arena in all its dimensional realms. And, you know, all the galaxies were just merging. And then everything just merged. All the dimensions of realities just merged and turned into a little vortex of light. And I just popped out of it with my awareness, right? and I'm just looking at this little vortex of light that's spinning. And one little spin of that, in there was eons and eons and eons of time. And I was like, wow, because even though I was back merged with my greater being, I took with me part of the ego construct of George. So that way, when I go back, I can actually remember some of my experience. So here I am completely in this void space, feeling just this total isness. There wasn't like, no, there's even in other dimensions, like let's say in a dimension of unity in Mother Earth, which is what New Agers would refer to as the fifth dimension, right? So let's say just another dimensional realm on this planet where things are in unity. Even there, you don't feel hot, cold. You don't feel like the polarization of life, like we do here. But in that state, there was no form. There's just awareness. You're just pure awareness, isness. I don't know how else to say it, to what labels to use on it. And there's just this void, and I've just seen this little vortex of light. And then I felt myself just totally reintegrate with my infinite nature. And I got with my awareness to see outside the universe. And outside the universe, I saw what all I could label it is the omniverse, because it's all these other universes and all those. And I'm not referring to the multiverse. That's inside our universe. And there are all other universes made of the same construct of this one. So when I was looking outside in what I call the omniverse, and I'm doing this because I'm trying to give you sort of like a physical sort of perspective.
No, I completely understand. I've been where you are on psychedelics, and so I totally understand. I talk about this AI, and I point up to the sky because that's where I saw it from. I'm like, I saw this thing in the sky. So no, I totally understand.
And the omniverse had all these other universes, countless, and they're all different constructs. And then I saw these energetic streams of all those universes were all streaming into this one. And then I started seeing this network of energy, which is different to the energy in this universe. But out there, I was just seeing all these connections of all the universes. So we're all just like a tapestry. And we're all inside these universes because we are these universes. So out there, I've got my universe, you've got your universe, Sheree's got hers, and everybody listening, you've got your own universe out there because we're all creator beings. And we decided to express ourselves as universal beings, what we call universal beings. So just these beings that just want to express themselves. And that expression became what we would call a universe. And what we do is we then project aspects of self inside each other's creation or expression, right? Because they're kind of like all individual fun parks, and they all provide different sets of experiences for us to learn from and have fun, right? So, and the one thing I noticed was there was, from inside this world, how we experience it, there was two themes that were really strong that I felt, experienced out there in the omniverse. And that was this energy of synergy, which we call love. That's what the label we give it. It's kind of like a cohesive, harmonious state of being. Yeah, just to use it a different sort of descriptive title, we call that love. And that was there in the omniverse. And the other one, which I found most fascinating, was the sense of adventure. That was really strong in the omniverse. Now, just think about that for a minute. Really just feel into that.
Well, George, hold that thought. Let's pick it up right on the other side. And what I want to ask you is, how can people achieve this type of state? I get this question asked all the time, and my go-to is, here, shut up and drink this brew here, and I'll take you there, or you can take yourself there. But that's not the answer for everybody. So maybe we can help people with that right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
My dear traveler, you are a divine being, an all-powerful creator, and within you dwells infinite wisdom. All that is left is to step beyond the veil.
The answers are all inside of you, and this is why I urge each and every one of you, hashtag become your own shaman. Being a shaman is not just about taking psychedelic plants, it's not just about any of that, it's about healing yourself, healing from the trauma-based mind control we've all been subjected to on so many different levels, even losses, everything that has happened to us in this particular life that has contributed to the ego programming that has kept us away from the realization that we are raw consciousness, that we are the creators, we are divinity. And once we get to that next door, all of a sudden that door opens up, and then more gnosis is revealed. And then, eventually we can get to the door where we start to ask, well, who created raw consciousness? But first we have to realize we're raw consciousness before we can open that door. But, George Kavassilas was talking about ego loss, basically ego death, where you get to this point where you are nothing but raw consciousness, and you can see from an outside perspective. And I've been there on heavy, heavy, heavy doses of ayahuasca to the point to where I don't remember who I am, what I am, et cetera, et cetera. But the goal is, as George said, to maintain a little bit of identity. So when you come back, you can remember, oh, okay, I am raw consciousness. I was Chris Geo briefly, and then I speculate that at the end of the cycle, when this actually happens and the programs are wiped by the AI, before you are reincarnated, you can hold on to that raw consciousness and say, no, I recognize being raw consciousness. I recognize that I was Chris Geo briefly. I recognize all these different lifetimes. I don't have to give into this wheel of reincarnation. I don't have to give in to this pulling by this entity, this AI entity that's out there. I'm going to make my own path, and I'm going to traverse into the realms that of my particular choosing. Now, George, a lot of people ask, how do they achieve these states? And, my go-to, like I said, is ayahuasca. But do you have any methods that people can utilize where they can achieve these states as well?
Yeah, the one that I like to share with people, because people have different ways of achieving this. So the one that I've works for me, and I'm sharing, and I know is working for other people, is realizing our infinite nature, even if it's just intellectual to start with. Yeah. So it's just having that understanding at a base level that we are infinite, and that we are inside a universe. And this universe, the way it's constructed, is a light wave pattern. So it's a universe of contrasting expressions, because it's a sine wave. It's the way we explain its base construct. And that within this universe is a paradigm which we call the grand cosmic arena in its multidimensional form. And within that is an entity that everybody calls God, because it's an entity that wants to be a big fish in a small pond and wants to be the one that is actually claiming to be the creator of all that is and all that exists. But if you know that life is infinite, then you know that there is no creator, because life always has been and it always will be There's no beginning to it, and there's no end to it. So for me, for example, I know that about my own beingness. I know that I always have existed and always will exist. There's no beginning or end to me. And that's not egoic insanity. That's just the understanding of the infinite nature of life. What is egoic insanity is an entity, one being, one consciousness, claiming to be the creator of all that is and all that exists. Now that...
Oh, well, look at what this thing defines. It defines heaven as the ultimate and endless worship of it. Like this is what people are going to heaven for, to worship this thing for eternity. I mean, how more egotistical can it get?
That's right. And, I say to people in my courses, and this is, might hurt a few people, but the truth has to be told. Truth is, I love what Mark Passio says, truth is belligerent. It doesn't care whether you like it or not, it just is. I say to people, do you look at the times of when this interdimensional entity called Jesus, now I'm not talking about the Christos, I'm talking about Jesus, which is the version of Christ the priestly caste want people to venerate and worship, right? So I say to people, and the priestly castes are a bunch of, sorcerers who worship a particular deity, and they're into rituals. That's why people do flesh and blood ritual called communion. Yeah, it's a flesh and blood ritual.
Oh, it's vampirism.
So we're talking about it's black magic and it's sorcery. Mm-hmm. That's what we're dealing with, and this I say, when you'll notice that whenever this Jesus character turns up in people's lives is always when someone is at their lowest point, at their worst. And the priests sell it as though, oh yeah, because that's when people need help. That's when they
need their creator at the most at that point.
That's when they need saving. And I say to people, once that happens, because this is when that character turned up in my bedroom, I was at probably my lowest point in my life as well. And I say to them, when that character, that interdimensional entity called Jesus turns up in someone's life and helps them in that moment, because it can, what happens to that person from that moment on? Well, what happens is devotion. That person becomes a devotee. And then from that moment on, we'll always pray and worship this Jesus character. And it's our Heavenly Father, apparently. So what we're looking at is an entity that comes and takes advantage of people when they're at the lowest, because I'm a coach. I'm a life coach. Yeah, I do mentoring. I do it every week, multiple times, several days a week. So I understand the vulnerability of people. I understand my vulnerability. That's why I understand the vulnerability of others. And I make really sure that I don't disempower my people that I'm working with, right? I always make sure that I am in the process of empowering them and holding that space so they have the power to heal themselves. Often I have to say, look, I can't do this for you, because people will come with that program that you're the one that's going to do it for them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because that's the savior archetype that's pumped into everybody through religions.
Right.
And so people then project that onto people like myself. And I'm like, no, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not here to save you. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. What I will do is give you the tools and hold the space so you can do it for yourself. And that if you've done real plant medicine, which you have, that if you've got a person next to you and they are spewing their guts up and they're bawling their eyes out and it looks like they are dying, you do not help them.
You don't interfere. No.
You do not. Mm-hmm. Because right in that moment, they're digging deep inside of themselves to find their medicine, which is going to heal them.
Right.
You're absolutely right. It's happened with Sheree and I. I see her in her space and she's going through whatever she's going through. And then my higher self will say, leave her alone. Don't touch her. Likewise, she gets the same messages when I'm going through it. Every once in a while, she might come and put a little sage or something, but that's it. It's like, go to the experience, have the experience, because that's the that's the spiritual workout. Like if you don't go through the experience, you're not going to build up your spiritual muscles.
Well, and also I just wanted to add too that people aren't going to feel healing unless they want to feel healed, and it's impossible for anyone to heal another person. That other person, the person that's being healed, has to. It's not even accepting the healing, but they have to heal themselves. They're just using the energy from the healer to do so. And it's totally up to them, though. If they don't want to be healed, it doesn't matter how good that healer is. They're not going to be able to heal them.
You're absolutely right. Well, let me add this real quick, George. I think that, what our role is to show people, leading by example. Look, we've healed ourselves. You can too. Let's shine the light for you so you can see that you can heal yourself. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
We're real shaman because the word Sha is light. So we're beings of light, the true light, the raw, authentic light, not the false light, not God's light. That's the false light. So, we're part of the organic light, the natural, or what I call the natural light. What you call raw consciousness, I call natural light, because we're natural men and natural women. So we're not living the distortion, And Shaman means a man of light, the real light. So we need to understand the allowing our true nature of the light within, which is that unity of us and the creator of this universe. Remember, God is not, there's the creator of this universe, and then there's the God of religions. And we're dealing with two different things. And once we get that, you'll be surprised what will open up for you in your contemplations and your meditations. And while I use the word meditation, so here you've got someone that will integrate with a plant, and will go through a very deep process of restructuring, of looking in the mirror, of facing and doing the hard work, the inner work. And, and I've done it before. I don't do it often, but I have done it before, so I understand it. And I've got friends who really are deep into it. And I've got other processes that do the same for me in different ways. And when you meditate, for example, which is what the New Cage religion offers you and recommends that you do, and bring the light in from an ascended master or an angel or whatever, what you're actually doing is you're consuming a light energy. And in our 3D reality, it's like pill popping. So you're taking a substance from outside of yourself, you bring it in, and you're wanting that to do it for you. So when you meditate and you do the chakra thing, you bring it down through the crown chakra and you anchor it into your body, and wherever that light's coming from, that's actually consuming an external substance. So you lie the bliss out, so you're getting high. So it's like drug taking, multidimensional drug taking, or you wanting that energy to do it for you. So what you're actually dealing with is spiritual bypass. You're not wanting to actually look at what you have to change inside of yourself. You're not facing what you need to face. And, spiritual bypass is a major issue on our planet. And that's why the New Cage religion is proliferating so strongly at the moment.
The New Cage religion, I love it.
I've never heard that before. But yeah, that's a really good way of putting that. But I do have to say that I wonder if collectively we didn't create this reality ourselves on some level, and that we are the creator, that we kind of worship, but we don't realize that it's us. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure. It is both. It is an aspect of us, and it is also another entity. But, and while I'm talking about another entity and people going, oh, it's separation, blah, 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 you need to understand that even though I'm talking and I'm exposing this God entity and what it's doing and what it's about, in another way, there's no separation between me and that being, because it's made of exactly the same stuff that I'm made out of in this universe. So on the base level of this universe, we're in unity. There's no separation. So what we need to do is learn how to walk between all these worlds. So we need to call out the imposition. We need to expose it. We need to try to understand how to manage it, how to navigate through this matrix system. how to actually learn how to transcend it. And at the same time, how we go about doing that is really important, because I've come to realize, I'll just speak on my behalf, I've come to realize that the more I have that division going on, sort of like creating that space between me and that entity, the more I'm fostering an internal division within me. So what I like to do is to totally embrace all the darkness of this universe, no matter what its expression. And it's a big statement to do that, because the statement you're making to the universe, to all the darkness, no matter what its expression, no matter how ugly it is and how powerful it is, I'm not scared of you anymore. The fight's over. Game's over. Do you know what I mean? It's
interesting.
So powerful to be able to do that. So I don't fear God. I'll give you another example, just to bring it on the ground level. I went last week to my interview. I've been in a 6-month process, and my sponsors and me, we've had my sponsors actually did the forking out of $8,000 just so I can come and hold 2 seminars in the United States.
I heard about that.
We've had to
when
deal
is that?
with immigration lawyers, and the application was a ream of paper thick. And I then, once the paper side of it was accepted and I got cleared, I then had to go for an in-person interview. So I had to fly down to Sydney, which is by car, it's a 10-hour drive from here, fly to Sydney and go for an in-person interview with the Consulate General of the US, United States. So I was there last week for that interview, for the final stage of the application. And everybody was shitting themselves. Like, the security in the building was so full on. Layers you go from one section of the floor to the other, and you've got to wait in all these different waiting bays and do different stages of the actual thing. I mean, the day before, I had to go through a really long phone call with my lawyer.
Oh my God.
To run me through the protocol of the interview process, because it's so serious and intense.
Just to come here for a couple of weeks?
Just to come here for a few weeks?
Yeah.
I trust me, the U.S. really isn't that much to write home about. I mean, it's really not that important. Wow.
And then you go, and the security is more strict than even to get on a plane. And it's like bulletproof doors after bulletproof sections. And then you go up and you're escorted with security up a lift to another floor, more bulletproof stuff going on up there. And then, you go through the interview process, and the person that interviews you is behind the bulletproof glass again.
Wow. Well, to be fair, though,
it was intense.
You are the most dangerous terrorist that there is. Somebody that wants to change people's consciousness.
Exactly.
Like, they'll let people through with shoe bombs and stuff like that, but you want to change somebody's consciousness, you better watch out.
You want to start jihad in the United States, you have no problem whatsoever getting over here. But as soon as you want to change people's consciousness, we got a huge problem here.
I'm sorry to hear you went through all that. When are the seminars?
I'll get to that. I just want to finish this bit first, because this is kind of like giving an example of not fearing. So I went there, and what I did was I opened up my heart in the morning, and I totally embraced the entire Consulate General into my heart space. And I really embraced the United States of America. Because I do. I love the US. I think it's an awesome country. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just ask us, and I'm really generally mean that. And I got the opportunity to really put everything that I teach into practice in this situation. So I'm there, and I'm just holding my space, and everyone around me is freaking out. And I'm just sharing the love, and I'm beaming out from my heart soul essence, my multidimensionality. And I'm smiling, and I'm just not buying into the game at all. And the security were really watching me carefully, because I was behaving differently to everybody else, right? And they couldn't work me out. And I look at their name tag, and I would call them by their name, and I was very kind and courteous and the whole lot, because I'm just like that all the time anyway. And after it, when I got cleared, when I was in the interview process, I just got asked 2 questions. Why are you going to the States? What do you do for work? Everyone else that was in the interview process got absolutely grilled. How much is in your account? Why are you going to stay with that person? How long are you going to stay there for? Blah. They got grilled. Everybody around me was getting grilled. I just cruised through.
Interesting.
Because I'm working from a space of love, honor, and respect. It's about what I've come to realize is there's one thing in natural law, LIRE law, the real law, right, is because LAW is God's law. That's the authoritarian construct. But natural law is all about co-creative agreements, right? So the way natural law operates is the prime creator of a reality is the ultimate authority of that reality. That's how it works. So it's a really simple law. And so I'm entering into someone else's reality. So that whole construct of the consular general, even though that is inside and nested in another reality, I still respected the fact that I entered into that space. And it's like entering into someone else's home. It's like someone comes into your home, right? You hold that space. So you're the authority of that space. If someone comes in and starts trashing your home or, mistreating you or being unpleasant, you don't like it, do you?
Right.
When someone does that. So it's about understanding that we are in a matrix system and that we're actually in someone else's creation when it comes to that level, that scope. Of course, there's other scopes and other levels, but just acknowledging that and just being in that space of integrity and going, okay, I respect that an aspect of my being has chosen to enter into your creational space. So I'm going to respect that. And once you do that and you approach it from that level, you stop scrapping it out with the street gangs, and now you're stepping into the boardroom with the generals. Now you're operating in a whole new level of reality, and you get to negotiate, you get to set boundaries with your experience in a reality. It's a whole new experience. And so I wanted to share that with people, is that I put it into practice on the 3D level, and I was able to cruise through because I'm fully respecting the United States of America. I'm fully respecting the drama that's playing out with that country at the moment. And sure, I know some people are pulling the strings and they're manufacturing it, but for the majority of the population, they're not the ones that are creating it, in a sense, right? I know on deeper levels they are, right, but on the more shallow levels, they're not. Mm-hmm. And so to me, the people are awesome. I love the American people. Most of my clients are from the US. I'll say 80% of the people that I do my mentoring sessions with are from the US, which is a really interesting thing. I find it just shows it's such a cauldron of activity in the world at the moment. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. And well, so you had a question in relation to that, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, let me share a recent experience. I got a copyright strike from the show we did last week with Frank on from Fox, and they pulled the entire video, 3-hour and 20-minute panel discussion like we're doing today. And we used a 57-second clip from Futurama, disputed it with the AI, YouTube. It came back, declined. They said, okay, well, you can go ahead and file another appeal, but if you don't, if they deny it, then it's going to come back as a copyright strike, etc. So I picked up the phone and I called Fox's legal department and I said, I need to speak to a human. And they gave me an email address and I sent them the email address. I sent them an email, very polite. I said, hey, I understand this is all automated systems, etc., but I need a human to intervene on this. 12 hours later, the video was back online instead of bitching and screaming and doing the whole, truther programming thing. So I can definitely relate. I actually just applied this just last week. And you're right. When you walk in and you understand the game and how the game is played, then you can play the game strategically instead of just be overwhelmed by the game over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah, because if you approach it in the truther movement approach, you are screwed. Because you are playing right into their hands. They want you. They want the fight. They love it. They get off on it. So you just got to be careful of that because it's the schoolyard bully that's sucking you into a fisticuff.
Right. They like the polarity because the polarity keeps them going too. So it's one side versus the other side. And then it just goes back and forth like one of those seesaws that goes up and down, and it just consistently does that. If you refuse to play the game altogether and say, I don't care about all this, I I'm going to be raw consciousness and I'm going to live as raw consciousness, then suddenly their game is all screwed up, and the monopoly.
Because you realize their game is in your game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, their game is in your game. Like, their reality is nested inside a greater reality that I am part of a group of beings that are holding the space for. And you are too. You're part of that. So their reality is in your reality. And it's understanding how natural law operates. And then it's stepping into that space of, okay, so if I'm one of the beings that helped build this galaxy from the start, and don't ask me numbers, there's so many of them, but I know I'm one of the beings that helped build this galaxy. And it's like, well, that means everything in this galaxy I have, to a degree, a level of responsibility for. So, yeah, there's a lot of karma that comes with that. There's a lot of responsibility and obligation, but there's also a lot of authority, natural authority.
Well said. Let's take the top of the hour break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Another hour with George Kavassilas right here on Beyond the Veil, where I want to go to some listener questions as well. I also want to talk about the rules of this construct, the all the way up to the God level, up at the very top. We'll be right back.
Preparing to initiate phase 3 momentarily. Brace yourself, traveler. We are about to venture into the realms of the unknown. www.beyondtheveilradio.com.
All right, hour number 3 right here on Beyond the Veil, and I went ahead and cut the rest of the break, so we'll just go straight to the 57-minute mark of the next hour because we've got so much more ground to cover. I want to talk about the chakras here briefly because I don't remember her name, but somebody reached out to me on Facebook and said, hey, can you help me remove the chakras? And I said, well, do you really want to remove them? Because you can just, as raw consciousness, realize that they're just artificial implants and you can just bypass them completely.
Just don't use them.
And but I said, the only person that can remove them is yourself. And she asked me to ask George about the removal of the chakras. So George, I don't know how I feel about the chakras. I mean, I know that they're artificial implants. I know that they are part of the AI construct. I've never gone through the process of quote unquote activating them. I never resonated with the chakras. But the idea of removing them too. Do you have any advice for people looking to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can just be an opportunist for a moment, and I'm being totally honest that I want to be, if somebody's really keen on making that happen, then you can come to my event in California, which is going to be in early October. And we're going to run the people in the room through that whole process. So, but prior to the actual I call it transcending the chakra system. So what I show people, what I share with people is a segment called closure first. So because what we're doing is we're achieving closure in the agreement that we have to actually have them attached to our bodies and to have the experience of them. So it's about bringing closure to the actual soul level agreement. That gets done first before the actual chakras go through a process of, well, you could say it's not just removing them and throwing them away. It's actually dislodging them and then dissolving them into your heart. You're being yourself, your own being deals with the chakra system itself. So you deal with the agreement to have them in place and have that experience in the first place. And then you actually step through the process. So you do it yourself on actually dislodging them and then dissolving them into your heart. You embrace them into your. They just dissolve once you embrace them into your heart. So it's a very detailed process on one level, but it's thorough. And it's funny because people have got lots of different arguments as to why they like chakras. And the levels of justifications that go on from the new cages is unreal. The one argument they're trying to pin on me is that I'm taking away a person's 7-color experience of this reality. And what they don't realize, because there's another speaker out there, I won't name the person, who is pro-chakras and is telling people that I'm doing the wrong thing and that I'm taking away their experience.
It's not David Wilcock, is it?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I want to wring that guy's neck for the blue avian stuff.
I'm not taking away their experience. What happens is the chakra system is hijacking your 7-color experience from the sun. So we've got the natural light coming from the sun, and then the chakras are going to get in between you and your relationship with the sun, because the whole system of chakra, kundalini, pineal gland, that 3-way system, is all about hijacking your perception of this reality and your relationship with your mother planet and your relationship with the sun. So there's a lot of funny business going on about how, with the light and our experience of natural light at the moment. It's a really big deal.
Interesting. So would you say that, do you actually do the chakra removal yourself, or do you teach people how to remove the chakras themselves?
I teach people for them to do it themselves because it's their relationship with their chakra system. So that's how I go about it.
Excellent. This person asked me my opinion on these 2 individuals that I've never heard of. I won't name their names either, but she wanted to go to them to have them remove the chakras. And I said, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
I don't think it's something somebody else can do for you. Somebody can teach you how to do it.
Yeah, somebody can show you. But
so, I'll tell her to contact you.
Yeah. And look, soon after I come back from my US trip, I'm going to be, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but you'd be surprised every time I go to do it how something comes up. We want to do this for every year, is I'm going to film the process, and I'm going to have it available online in my membership website. So people will be able to purchase that through the membership website, and it'll be a course. Because closure is, I teach that in person for a day. It takes a whole day to get through closure. And that's just teaching it to people so they can then go and do the exercises themselves.
Right.
And then once you've done closure, then you can go about transcending the chakra system. Then we go about transcending the kundalini. We actually deal with that out of the, we end up removing that out of the spinal column altogether. And then we deal with the pineal gland, which we don't remove that because that, unfortunately, the way it's been infused into the body, all we can do is atrophy it consciously. And then we go about doing closure with God. And it's really funny because, after the first day, I go, so tomorrow you better be prepared. It's going to be a big day because we're going to do chakras in the morning and we're going to deal with God in the afternoon.
Ooh, it's a full day.
And you're telling it, thank you for bringing me up to this point. I really appreciate everything you've done, et cetera, but it's time for me to head my own journey.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's done with love, honor, and respect, and it's about cultivating the wisdom from the experience. It's really wholesome, the way we go about it.
Definitely. It sounds a lot to me like a physical therapist. Nobody likes to go to physical therapy for one reason, and that's you have to do the work yourself. You can't just go and they put you to sleep and then you wake up and you're fixed. No. The physical therapist literally shows you what to do, and then you have to do it on your own. No,
that's true. I got into a car accident back in 2012, and the doctor said, okay, you need to get 50 massages and then go to physical therapy. I went to the massages. I did not do the physical therapy.
He didn't even do the physical therapy. And that's how a lot of people are. They would rather go to a healer and have that healer do the work for them, but they're not learning anything in the process. And then thus, I think that when somebody else tries to remove your chakras, they're not really removing anything because you're not learning anything in the whole process.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of clients who came to my courses and then they went from mine and went to a new cage thing, and totally got entranced by it again. And then they said to me, look, we want our chakras back. And I said, you can have them back anytime you want. You are a creator being. And even though you've dissolved them into your heart, you can still pull them out and reinstate them. You're a creator being. It's okay.
Right. Everybody's on their own journey for sure. I think, when you understand the RAwConsciousness, though, you realize how much nonsense it all is. Chakra systems and pineal gland and ascension and all this.
Why would you want to continually be in a compartmentalized, fragmented state of being?
Right, where there's different sections.
Why would you want to carry around all these portals of access for all these entities to feed off you?
That's right.
Why would you want that?
Some people like their demons. Somebody called me and asked me to clear them, and I started talking to them, and I got the feeling after speaking to them for a while that they really like the attachments. And if I was to put in all the work and energy in order to help them clear these energies, they were just going to run right back into them. And I made the mistake of helping somebody that I knew better than to help, and that person went running right back into the negative energy and just wrapped themselves up in this demon again. So or this AI or whatever it is. Some people like the dark. I think that's what it comes down to. We had a question from one of the listeners earlier, and I think I can answer the question as well, but I want to get your take. The question was, does this AI manifest small versions of itself, like squid, small little
mini
squids?
squids?
Yeah,
it does.
I've seen them as well in the astral. Yeah,
we call them astral parasites.
Yep. And there's when I said this is a vast multidimensional empire, I really mean that. It's really big. I mean, you've got the archons, which are also the archangels in the New Cage religion.
Right.
Same beings.
Right.
People haven't quite made that, connection yet.
Oh, I've been telling people they just don't listen.
No, they don't want to. They don't want to hear it. No.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it. They want fluffy white unicorns. And they want to be burping butterflies and farting rainbows.
Well, and I think the reason why they like the chakra system so much is because just like they like to see a clockwork universe, they want to be clockwork people where, all these little wheels are turning and everything's turning in synchronous order, but this part's separated from this part and your crown chakra is totally separate from your root chakra, but they're all working together. No, they're not working together. You're limiting yourself by engaging in this. I'm a clockwork robot. It doesn't work.
And people want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing stepping out of the gold matrix does is make you completely vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's just you. And you are no longer using crutches. You're no longer using training wheels. Now you're stepping up. And it's up to you to put the hands on the steering wheel of your vessel. The analogy I use to people is like, you're a captain of a ship and you're down in your cabin, several floors below, and you're drunk because you're so depressed and you can't handle the responsibility, and someone else has got their hands on your wheel. And I'm saying you've got to stop feeling sorry for yourself, stop being so frightened, get off the bottle, so to speak, as a metaphor, get back up onto the bridge and put your hands on the wheel and steer your bleep ship, because it's your responsibility. You're the captain of your vessel. And that's why we have maritime law and admiralty law. You need birth certificates. Really, this is a vessel and it's got sacred waters in it. And we are the captains of these vessels. So people like the God matrix because they don't have to take responsibility for themselves, you see. They don't want that. So they don't know. They haven't the capacity to be a responsible creator being. They want someone else to do it for them. And it's, the God matrix is there, it is for the weak. I'm going to throw a punch. Sorry, but it's true. If you're into the God matrix, it's because you're weak. Yeah. It's because you don't have the intestinal or the internal fortitude to actually be your authentic self. Because to be your authentic self means you've got to turn inside out. You've got to wear your heart on your sleeve, and you've got to allow yourself to be totally vulnerable. And you know what's awesome about it? You really get to see who's who and what's what in your life when you do that.
Right.
You really do. And you see the ones who'll just want to trample all over that. It's like a big, you've got a big open wound, and you get to see the people that just come along and rub salt in it. It's unreal. And, I love that process because even though it created a lot of pain initially, I learned how to deal with it very quickly. And I also got rid of all the people in my life that weren't supposed to be with me. And I was holding on to those relationships out of ideology. And now I've got in my life the most awesome people. And there's people that, even though we'll come together and sometimes we'll have space, we come together again. And it's like we're just taking this journey and we pick up the day we left off, and there's no guilt trips, there's nothing like that. And we just work from this most basic principle, which works for any relationship. And it's this simple. Love is freedom. I'm going to say it again. Love is freedom. So if you're in a relationship and someone wants to walk out the door and you are really fighting to stop that person and trying to convince them not to and blah, 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 then you got to stop and take a good look at yourself, because that's not love. That is control, that is need, that is fear, that is desperation, but it's not love. Because if you truly love someone, you will set them free. You will let them be. And then what happens is, if you're with a person, it's because they want to be with you, not because they're under the influence of one of your projections of control or neediness or fear or desperation. Get it? Love is freedom. So we're with people because we want to be with people, not because for any other reason, because we love them. It's that simple. Keep everything else out of the equation. And then your relationship will be so wholesome. And, you know, I've just been with a person, for about 12 months. And we just looked at each other one day and went, does it feel like we're done? And it was like, yeah, it does. Okay. So we've separated recently. And it's like, that was so lovely. It was the most mature. People around here, because I live in a pretty awesome area, they call it conscious uncoupling. Mm-hmm. Really interesting term. And so people are just really honouring each other. And we would sit down and we go, okay, so in that separation process, what could I do to support you? Is there anything, and what can I change about myself? And, what do you want to say? And you create a really safe space for the other person to be able to communicate with you. And it just turns into this beautiful space of love, honour and respect. And there's no pain, there's no blame, there's no shouting, there's no nothing. It's just loving the person and loving them as they walk out the door. That's awesome.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
We were talking about this a couple of years ago, and Sheree coined it 4D relationships, where you don't control the other person. But now 4D, the illusion has been shattered around 4D.
Shattered about 4D.
But back then where we were, that was the best way to relate all of this.
Right.
And, I've got to say that you choose your words a lot more carefully than I do. When we were talking about the savior thing, I just put out a YouTube video. I looked dead in the camera and I said, what do you need a savior for? What, are you a pussy? Are you a cuck? Why aren't you saving yourself? So don't worry about throwing punches, because I've already threw a whole arsenal out there, and it's great because it really resonates with people. Like, a lot of people are standing up and going, hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. Thank you for being so straightforward. And then you get the occasional new agers like, oh my God, I can't believe you said these words. And it's like, well, yeah, sorry, but I'm RAwConsciousness, and I've been through the shit. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. I face the darkness. When you face the darkness, you don't come out floating on a cloud. You come out looking like you've been to battle. That's the way I see it.
Right.
Yeah. And you face it and you embrace it. And then you realize that some battles still need to be fought and others you just don't need to.
Right.
And it's just the way you navigate through this reality completely changes, because now you've merged with this reality and all of a sudden you're able to read the play, because it talks back to you all the time, all the time. Even if, like, I was in Sydney and I was walking through the subways and, just watching all the ants just pouring through the subways. It was unreal. You stand on a tall building and you call it rush hour, we call it peak hour. And if you stand in a tall building in a major city and just look down and just watch all the ants come out of their little holes and they just go in little lines and all the worker ants. It's unreal. And then they go in the mornings and they'll go into the buildings, and then at the end of the day, they all come pouring out again. And it's like ant trails everywhere. It's just awesome.
George, let me get to a couple of listener questions, because we got a few, and then I do want to talk about the different levels of this construct as well. I know Rebecca had a question.
Yeah, her name's Molly, actually, and she had a really good question. She said that she's been following and with us on the whole AI thing until Chris said something about Buddha, Jesus, Isis, Kali, basically all the gods and goddesses being simulated through each arm of this octopus, unless she heard you wrong. So are you saying that through your experience you think and know that these gods and goddesses are being projected by this AI, and what is the purpose of that? I just ask because it seems that on my path I have a lot of goddesses coming to visit me. Almost every time I have an inner journey, I either have Shiva or Shakti in one of the manifestations, Isis, Kali especially, Aphrodite even, and I just wonder why I've had them speak through me so often. Let me know your thoughts.
George,
okay.
why don't you take that one?
Yeah.
And I'll fill it. Yeah.
That's a very sensitive one, especially if you're in that much relationship with all these entities. So around here, the women, I like to call it the womankind, it just has more depth to it. They have awoken, and these are people that have gone through this stuff, even ones that are like 60, 70 years old and lived in ashrams and have jumped from one modality to another on the path their whole life. They've all transcended the goddess thing, okay? That's a real issue. What we need to understand is the letters G-O-D. Now, remember I said to you that the people who wrote the Bible and handed that Bible to the masses and the other scriptures from other countries, I call them the priestly caste. They come in many forms, yeah? And there's even shamans who are of the priestly caste, and then there's natural shaman. So you got to be careful. And what they did is they wanted people to contribute or attribute the creative power of this universe and their own creative power to a set of 3 letters. Now, when we speak words are vibrational patterns. And these vibrational patterns interact with life, interact with the universe. So if you utter the word God, right now an opening has occurred. So every time someone says, oh my God, and they say it in a very significant moment in their life, then what they're doing is they're attributing the process of creation in that moment to that entity, because the portal opens up when they say it, and their intention then gets projected through that portal into the realms of that entity. It goes to it in the universe. You're sending energy to it with your intention. Remember I said about all the energy just streaming off the earth and going to that God entity? It's just, and it's androgynous, by the way. So what we're dealing with is the deity of the priests. Every time you refer to God or goddess, if you're in another culture, it's Allah. If you're in another culture, it's Yahweh. If you're in another culture, it's Shiva or Shakti or Kali, whatever. So what we're dealing with is you have God in the masculine. So you have this androgynous energy. It's just pure consciousness, pure mind energy. It's just an ego construct on a cosmic level, on a multidimensional cosmic level. That is who and what God is. And then you've got God in the masculine, and then branches off to goddess in the feminine. And so we've got the patriarchy, so we've got the priests, and then we've got the priestesses. And you'll notice in the New Age religion just how many high priestesses there are walking around and how many goddesses there are walking around. So what we've got is the patriarchy and the matriarchy. You got to realize they're alter egos of one another. And they branch back to this entity, which is androgynous, this energy. And so for me, my experience when it comes to, you hear me talk about the heart of the Christos earlier. So it's understanding that the crucifix is the sword, and the original meaning was Christos, which means he who is the golden one. And Chris will know that from his name and from Greek. And what they did is they put the sword, which is the sword, like the crucifix on the mound is the sword in the stone for King Arthur. It's the sword's the symbol of truth, and logos, which is the vibrational blueprint, the raw, what Chris calls raw consciousness, is actually what the sword symbolizes and what the heart of the Christos symbolizes as well. This is what I'm referring to as. So the sword gets put in the word, the crucifix gets put in the word. So in Christos, which means he who is the golden one, he who is golden, then becomes Christos. So it's like a T now in there, which is the sword. So that's where the word originates from. Now, Jesus Christ is a version of that the priests want people to worship. So it's not the original essence of the energy and the consciousness and the spirit of what I'm talking about. Because what I'm talking about is understanding who the sun is and understanding what the spirit behind the sun is as well. So I'm not talking about sun worship. I'm talking about understanding your local cosmic environment and the construct you're in, and understanding the natural order, and then also understanding the synthetic that's here as well, with all these projections going on, because it's layered. So you get past the artificial construct here and get into the natural construct here as well. So I'm talking about the natural construct and the spirit behind the natural construct. So if I was to use another analogy of Buddha, so you got the original Buddha, which is the guy with a sack on his back with a stick. He went around sharing the wisdom because he saw what the ruling elite families were like, and he was a part of them, and he just wanted to really help people. And yes, there's the metaphor of him sitting under the tree and all that sort of stuff. But the essence of Buddha is the same as the essence of the heart of the Christos. They're really the same energy. But that's totally different to the religious Buddha, with the headdresses and all the little vortexes all around the head, because it's all about the pineal gland.
Right.
Right? So you've got the natural Buddha, then you've got the religious Buddha. You've got the natural Christ or Christos, then you've got the religious Christ, which is Jesus. So it's understanding the natural order and then the synthetic order. So I don't adhere to all this spiritual doctrine, because I assure you that the natural Buddha and the natural Christos don't give a shit what labels you use. They actually, the energy is more inclined for you not to use labels, but just to have that pure connection, natural organic connection from your, if you want to call it your 0 point, from, you know, the core of your essence of your beingness, because that's where these energies are in unity with you. And then you can feel the vibrational fields of energy to do with Kali, to do with Shiva, to do with Yahweh, to do with Allah, to do with God, to do with Jesus. It's like I say, wait till the Christians find out that Jesus is the Antichrist and God is the demiurge. They're going to be shattered when they find out the truth. Shattered. Mate. I'm serious. Like,
no, you're absolutely right. That's why I'm laughing, because some of them won't. They'll fight you to the death over it.
Shock. Mm-hmm. Shock beyond belief is what's coming for those people. And it's really, I feel so nothing but empathy and compassion for them, because I've been through it. You know, I was christened a Greek Orthodox, and then I'm having all these multidimensional experiences, and I'm coming across all these entities and all the masks that they wear.
I was exactly the same. I grew up in the Greek Orthodox Church, speaking Greek, eating Greek food, kourabiedes, you know, you name it.
And, you know, and I went to a Catholic high school as well, on top of that. So my schooling years were in Catholicism. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is... And then I'm having all these multidimensional experiences, which are showing me completely different to what we've been told life is. So I'm not here as an agent of Satan, which is what people like to label me as. If anything, God is actually Al-Satan, which means the opposer,
the accuser. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So the accuser. I just want to make that point clear.
And that's what he does. Yeah. He accuses you of everything. Mm-hmm. It's plain as day.
Yeah.
It's plain as day. Yeah.
Let me chime in on this particular idea too. For Rebecca's question, she was speaking a lot in terms of the psychedelic experience. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, as you can see behind me, I know you can't see it, George, but people watching, I've got Isis hanging on the wall right behind me. I've got my Egyptian, amulet around my neck right now. These gods and goddesses that we encounter during these experiences, the way that I've decoded them is that they come in the form of what you need for that particular journey until you get to a particular level. In my particular journey, I've realized that these are activation codes within myself, and they're not actually external entities, but rather they're part of the consciousness. So when I encountered Isis, that was the divine feminine aspect of my consciousness lighting up. When I encountered Anubis, that was the fear of death lighting up and overcoming that. And it created a complete and whole consciousness. So, if you don't feel that's the same on your particular experience, that's perfectly fine. We're all on our own journey, and that's why I say # become your own shaman and walk your own journey. But in my opinion, they're activation codes to make us whole as raw consciousness. As I said earlier in the broadcast, one of the ways that I termed this raw consciousness was activating all these different Egyptian deities within my own consciousness. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I've activated them all. Now it's the raw. Now it's the raw consciousness. And so it's going back to base in the terminology of raw, but it's also going to that place of becoming whole again as the raw. So that's what I would say to Rebecca.
Yeah, as long as you don't calling it raw consciousness. Because that's, a lot of the rambling.
No. It's not AI programming BS. I am raw. Here's some bullshit. I am raw.
Right.
Here's some more bullshit.
Robotic.
How can people not see through this? I mean, that's the way a computer talks. I've gone through this in different videos, but you look at that raw material there, and it's just it's completely clear that it's an artificial intelligence. But what this guy David Wilcock has done, and I've said this in many different videos before. He's taken real consciousness energies and he's mixed it in with this bluebird nonsense and taking the power away from people by saying these are the Egyptians and they're bluebirds and they're big bird, and you can find them on Sesame Street if you just tune in, and their best friend is Oscar the Grouch, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's the way these things look.
This incarnation was brought to you by the letter A.
Right. This is brought to you by the letter A. It's classic. But no, he's taken real consciousness energies and he's mixed them in with this nonsense, new cage BS. And so yeah, I don't want to go. I don't want to.
It's part of all of that, because I know people that are my peers are all doing what they need to do to create an overall beautiful paradigm for us to have all these points of references to work with. I am being very diplomatic in this moment because I do actually love on and respect everybody who's in this field. It's not an easy thing to do, what we do. And all I can say is I was there in that arena that they're ambassadors for. And I understand who's pulling the strings in that arena. That's why I stepped out of it. And I've been very quiet about it. I actually was involved in a meeting, and because I can't be bought, I just can't. You'd be surprised the offers I get on a regular basis, and I'm still struggling to put food on the table. So I'm walking away from massive monetary offers all the time, and people trying to lure me in different directions, you see. And what I was involved in a meeting with the person who actually controls the whole whistleblower circuit. And this man, was the grandfather of the Super Soldier program, one of the grandfathers of it. His specialty was writing the mind control programs for the super soldiers. And, I'm in a meeting, and for 5.5 hours, he's trying to recruit me, and I'm saying no. And then over a period of 5.5 hours, he started threatening my life, and he threatened my life on multiple occasions. And it was really good because finally, in one of these wild, outlandish experiences that I had a witness. Now, because of this witness's career, I can't name the person, yeah? But I can tell you that this poor guy, because I'm used to all this multidimensional argy-bargy, I just have more of me that comes into my body. So it was on. Like, I locked eyes with this guy and he threw everything he had at me and he couldn't mind control me. And, to the point he was threatening me and he's twirling his hand like this. And while he's threatening me, the waitress is dancing twirls under his hand because he just wanted to show off his power. She was in a trance, dancing, spinning, twirls under his hand while he's threatening my life. So, this isn't child's play.
Right.
This is serious business. Right? And I mean serious business. And after that, there's been a campaign to discredit me. And it was been pretty fierce. I've been under a lot. It's fine. I'm not going to play the victim with it. I just want to help put things into perspective for people to understand that there is a disclosure process in place, and that disclosure process has been mapped out by a certain group of people that want it to go a particular way because it has to fit with particular ideologies. And the easiest way to put it is the Vatican is running disclosure. So everything that has to do with disclosure has to do with the God matrix.
Right.
So look at the narratives that are coming from people that are all about disclosure on that kind of disclosure. And it will be that, you know, the ETs are the ones that are coming to save us. And oh, by the way, you know, they all worship God.
Right.
So you just need to be careful with what's going on. And I know people are doing their best. I really do. And I saw yesterday for the first time, because I've been out of the loop with this stuff for a long time, that there's a big bitch fight going on in that whole arena about all this stuff. You know, it took me by surprise. I didn't realize it was so full on. Because I don't sit there and watch all these videos. And I did yesterday. I watched a video of somebody who's character assassinating another person. And then I watched another video of somebody who was character assassinated by somebody else trying to defend themselves. Now, I'm sure you can work it all out, but I'm just trying to be diplomatic, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was shocked because the one thing I don't want to do, this is, I'm in a privileged position, right? And it's so easy for me to step in that space and just character assassinate someone. But there's no integrity in that.
Right.
There isn't, you know? And, you know, the one thing I've learned, and I heard you say this earlier when I was getting ready, and I had you the first hour on in the background, which was freaking awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Say that. That was powerhouse stuff. You know, we need to just do what we need to do and be who we need to be, and then help other people do what they need to do and become what they need to become. And that's how we change the world. You see, there's an old saying, we're the ones we've been waiting for. And that statement is going to hit so deep as we go along. It's going to get more pronounced. It's going to become more significant. And it's going to have more substance for you. Everybody who wants what's real, because that's my anthem, my own personal affirmation, my motto at the moment. I wake up most days and I'm going, okay, I just want what's real. Cut the bullshit. No more masks. No more crap. No more lies. No more distortions. And that includes me. It's like, I'm not just saying that because I just want what's real out there. I say that because I want what's real in here. It has to happen in here first. And that's what people don't like. And you got to face yourself. You really, really got to face yourself. You got to look in that mirror and you got to deal with what you're confronted with. And then, you know, it's a symbiotic thing. So the more you change in here, the more you'll change out there. The more you see in here, the more you'll see out there. It's really awesome. And getting past all the spiritual doctrine that's ever been handed to you, you actually got to transcend all of it. Even though I use the word Christos and Buddha and all that, what Chris was saying earlier is you just got to move past all of that, because the real Christ and the real Buddha, they want to see you transcending beyond this whole freaking matrix and reconnecting with your infinite nature, beyond this universal construct. The real creator of this universe is so happy that when I connected with my infinite nature, there was such a big universal smile projected at me going on from the creator of this universe. It was awesome because I've achieved such a major journey. I'm bringing a huge, long journey that's been eras and epochs and eons of time long, and I'm bringing it to a close. It's been freaking awesome. And I'm done with this matrix system in this universe. I'm done with it.
I'm right there with you.
And I'm hearing a lot of people say, you know, I'm not coming back. This is my last time. How many people, you know, have said that?
Everybody that we talk to.
Yeah, dozens.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that so many people feel that way, but they don't quite know how to map it out? you know? And so I'm giving people kind of like a bit of a map, but it's not the definitive map. You know, I'm just saying, hey, this is what I've seen. So it's really good for us to let go of all the doctrine, let go of everything. It's that old saying, you know, you need to unlearn everything that you've learned. And it's a painful process at times, and just go back to your natural, raw, authentic self. And again, that means you've got to turn inside out, and you've got to be totally vulnerable to everyone and everything around you. But one thing I want to share with that is you need to understand that there is so much power in being vulnerable. You'll be surprised. And vulnerability is freedom. Okay, I want to say that. I have a quote. Vulnerability, I will put it out there before. Vulnerability is freedom, and vulnerability is empowerment. It's a misnomer to think that if you're vulnerable, you're weak. That's not true. It's the opposite way around. It's control freaks who can't stand being vulnerable. That's abhorrent to them. Whereas I'm willing to be completely vulnerable, and that has changed me so much because I'm not scared anymore, and it's just a great place to be.
Well, you know, I was going to say earlier that one of the advantages that we have being on this side of raw consciousness is that the shit that we've gone through, that's a strength. We're not trying to be gurus. We're not trying to say we're perfect, unblemished beings. We're not trying to be in this new age bullshit. I don't put a dot in the middle of my head and go, oh, look how holy I am. No, I've been through the shit. I have had a screwed up childhood. I had a screwed up past. I have been a son of a bitch. And I went from there to raw consciousness on my journey. And that's something that, you know, no character assassination could ever affect, because it's actually a strength. Because we've been through this shit. We're the examples now. We're like, look, we came from this shit here and we became this. Or we not even become, because it's not even becoming, it's remembering. We went through this shit and then we remembered that, wait a minute, we're raw consciousness. And everybody out there has been through this shit too. This whole idea of spotless guru and all this, I just addressed this in a recent video. It's complete and total bullshit. It's BS. It's belief system bullshit.
If there's somebody out there claiming that they are perfect and they have all the answers and they're this guru and everything, they're probably the worst people in the world, really.
Well, I noticed that with the religious people, like the ones that wear the religion on their sleeve and they're like, I'm so holy and this and that. They're usually the scummiest of the earth people.
Right.
Yeah, we've got, you know, different kinds of religions too, because scientism is a religion too. So you got to be
absolutely.
careful of that.
Yeah.
You know, and they wear different coloured robes and they have their prophets like Darwin and others. And, you know, just be careful. And then I just find that a natural, organic and raw relationship with life itself, meaning my mother planet, meaning the solar system, meaning the galaxy, meaning the multidimensional grand cosmic arena and the universe. So I'm in relationship with all of those. And it's about understanding that relationship. And when you go into the unity of those relationships. So if I want to know why I'm on this planet and where I've come from, all I do is just relax into the unity that's between me and Mother Earth. Well, and then I will get it, because that's where the knowledge resides. It's in my heart, soul essence, and it's in that relationship.
Well, and I also wanted to go into Mother Earth for a second, because we got a really good question. I think it was from Luke Johnson. Yeah. What is the ground made of? Gaia, terra firma. You can fractal out, but it's still there. It may feel like you attach each time you step around in bare feet, as I have felt. Also, I've had my arms merge with the grass and stuff like that. That's the one thing I'm confused about, because if this is an artificial construct and we need to kind of do away with the whole idea of gods, goddesses, all of that, except as an aspect of ourselves, where does the earth play in all of this? Does the earth have a spirit? And if so, is that spirit connected to this artificial intelligence, or is it a pure spirit?
Can you just hang on one sec? Someone's knocked at the door. Just one moment.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem.
Maybe they've come for George.
Uh-oh.
Who knows?
Yep.
We will see. But I got to say, this has been just an incredibly dynamic show, and we haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to everything that we had planned to talk about.
We haven't been able to even scratch the surface of this yet.
And, right.
Yeah, I'm just kind of confused about
Well, here's the way I see it.
Yeah.
The way I see it is that this is all an artificial construct. And the body is part of the artificial construct as well. Raw consciousness is moving my avatar around only because I've tapped into the raw consciousness. The ego program was moving it around for a long time. And the ego program still tries to jump in every once in a while. And I catch myself and I'm like, no, that's the ego program. But I would say that everything inside of this construct is artificial. So, getting out of the construct is ultimately the point. And maybe George can talk about this. Can you give us the different layers of this construct all the way up to the God construct? I talked about this before. I hate to ask you to repeat stuff, but with this entire new perspective, I think I'm going to get a lot more out of it, and I know the listeners are going to get a lot more out of it too.
Sure. So what I've come to realize is that a lot of these perspectives. So I have a slightly different experience of it than yourself, Chris, at this stage. Now, I don't know if mine's going to change, which I'm always open to that because I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else. So this is how I'm just going to share with you how I see it at the moment. When I adopt a ideology, it's like I'm putting a pair of glasses on, and then I'll see life through that ideology. And the one thing I learnt is seeing through ideologies gives me a perspective on life that whatever that framework of that ideology is what I'm going to experience. And so what I wanted to do was get past all of that as well, let go of all my ideologies. And the one thing I learned through all my experiences of going into craft and going to get taken to other worlds and other realities is the first thing you do is connect to the prime creator of the reality you're in. It's like basic rule number 101 sort of training that you get from multidimensional, when you move through the universe with your awareness, when you go from one dimension to another, you move through multiple dimensions and realities. Whenever you do that, you need to know your environment and who it is you're entering into, right? Because the moment you enter into a reality, you're actually entering into a being who is the prime creator of that space, that reality, that vibrational field of reality. So this is how natural law works. And so what I want to do is I want to understand my immediate cosmic environment. So I know I have a soul level agreement to be here and incarnate on Mother Earth's body. And I notice that when I adopt through my consciousness being mind energy, I'm actually seeing this reality and experiencing it through ideology. So when I come out of consciousness and I go back to not just normal heart, I'm talking about take knowledge, in other words, take consciousness and take love and blend them into a unity. And that is your greater being. That is what I call soul. And when I recede into that space, which you can here on Earth, and go into the soul and the heart of Mother Earth, then I'm experiencing a planet, a real planet. And it's an incredible realm, and it is layered, multi-dimensions. And for me, the planet that I live on is a real entity. For me, it's not a computer simulation. Even though there is a construct to it, we've got to be careful of, just because you've discovered the construct of a reality doesn't mean now the whole experience of that reality becomes devalued. You know, I have intention and purpose for being here in this world. So because people go, oh, look, you know, we've discovered the construct of the reality is just a hologram, which is the labels that scientism tends to want to use. So it's because it's reductionism. So Mother Earth is a living being, and she's been through an incredible amount to be able to hold this space of a planetary reality, which is a fractal of the entire universe, and to hold the space for us and who we need to be. So I'm in that. I get that relationship. I know why this world exists. I know why I'm here. I understand the jealousy of the gods and why they have to come here with their synthetic matrix imposition. I get it because of who and what we are, and because of what Mother Earth is doing, and I get it who the sun is, because I'm in relationship with the sun, like I'm inside a solar being. So I want to know who the sun is, and I want to understand all its different layers of construct. So if you go to another dimensional realm in the solar system, you'll see other planets that we don't see in our dimension, and you will see planets that we see in our dimension that are not in that dimension. Really interesting. And only a couple of them will span, some will go 3 dimensions, some will go more than 3 dimensions, and some will only just be in the 1 dimension of time and space. So for me, it's all about relationship. And because I exist here in this realm because I have an intention to be here. No one's forced me to be here. I'm here because I wanted to be here. And I have a soul level agreement with the prime creators of these realities. That's my experience of it. And I understand the layers of superficiality that are on top of that, to the point, and people are now saying that, to be totally honest with you, I got friends who have really taken on this AI thing a lot, and now all they see is a computer simulation. That's all they see. And they've lost touch with the natural organic order of life in this part of the universe.
Well, I got to say, George,
careful.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, we just want to be careful we don't get caught up in those ideologies, because that's all you're going to end up seeing.
Well, I got to say, one thing that I really admire about you, George, is you are very balanced, and you see from so many different perspectives and dynamics. So I really appreciate, because you're always a step ahead of me anyway. It goes.
We're in some things, and you're way ahead of me in others, Chris. So
definitely. No, there was some.
Say is,
there was some noise.
Let me. That noise in the
no. I didn't know if it was coming. I thought it was like coming from my computer or something. No problem at all. But no, what I was going to say is that I feel like perhaps we came here into the simulation, plugged ourselves into the simulation for a particular purpose. And I've talked about this purpose before, so I just want to throw this idea out your way, that we came here to hit the reset button. That we're going to reset this thing all the way back to before the AI took over, before all of that. And then organic consciousness, raw consciousness gets a second chance to go through this experience without the AI influence. What do you think about that idea?
I agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, because we're achieving closure. So we're achieving full circle, achieving completion. And I think that's exactly what we're in the process of achieving.
Excellent.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
We have about 3 minutes,
and there'll be those of us. Who will go through to different places. Okay, so there'll be those who will get harvested by this disclosure ET group that's coming, and the God Matrix. They're going to be harvested by that thing. There'll be people who will be harvested by sort of like angelic type entities, where their astral body will be taken out of their physical body, and they're going to think that they're having a spiritual experience.
Right.
Because they're not used to that. So they don't know what's going on. They just think they're being, taken by angels to heaven. But it's harvested.
The archangels. Yes. I know a lot of people that commune with the archons on a regular basis, and they see them as the saviors of humankind. Yeah. And it's disappointing, but it is what it is. But let me ask you this real quick, George, before we run out of time. We got 2 minutes left. Give us your websites, and also you never told us where you're going to be speaking and when.
Okay. Websites, I'mInfinite.love. That is the URL, .love. Membership website, WeAreInfinite.love, because we are.
It is all about the we
Monterey Bay, California, Northern California. You can go to I'mInfinite.love and click on the button there, and you'll get all the info. I'm doing 2 events. One weekend I'm doing Navigating the Matrix. I'm actually going to talk about cryptocurrencies in that, and teach people a little bit how to actually connect with the AI consciousness and learn how to enter into co-creative process with the coins themselves, which is what we're doing. We're holding seminars in that here in Australia. Very, very exciting stuff. So lots to learn there. And then the big one, Transcending the Matrix, 4-day event. And it's in 2 parts, Transcending the God Matrix, 3 days. And then the 4th day is called Inner Intelligence, where you actually step into that space of being a creator being and you put it all into practice.
Awesome. You know, I just had this chilling vision in my mind. Like I picture like all of us like waking up as raw consciousness and then realizing we're in another simulation, and the camera kind of pans out and you're in one simulation after another. So who knows what's next after this, but I know that we have to get past level 1 first before we can get to level 2.
I think you'll be surprised that you're just flying through all the levels because you're going home. So it's, we're just streaming through the levels, honestly. And now it's understanding how to walk between the worlds, all those levels, because we're occupying so many dimensions at the same time. And it's about being able to do that consciously. That's the real skill.
Awesome. When was the talk? I missed that.
Yeah, so the 30th of September and the 1st of October is Navigating the Matrix. And then the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th of October is Transcending the Matrix.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really powerful courses. Look, you're going to get skills that you can implement. Once you learn closure, you can implement that with anything. Like if you can't sell a house, you can actually do closure with the house. You can't sell a car, you can do closure with the car. You're having problems with somebody at work in a relationship, you do closure with the person. You can even do closure with God, which is what I'm going to, will guide people through. So when you can do closure with God, you can do closure with anything.
Yeah, that
Very
sounds
nice.
about right.
I need to do closure with his broadcasting software because it's been giving me problems all night.
Yep.
But we will figure it out.
Yep.
George, I want to say thank you so much for your time this evening. I know you're very, very busy. And I talk to other people and they're like, oh, George is impossible to get a hold of. He's impossible to get on. And we're always in touch. And I just want to say, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you do. The fact that you are out there as the front line, the tip of the spear, and always several steps ahead. So I'm going to go back and listen to this over again. And I'm going to take all of this into the ayahuasca realm with me and see what kind of answers I get. So
yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that acknowledgement. And I love you guys too. And it was an honor as soon as you got in touch with him, like, let's do it, because I always enjoy coming on here, and I learn so much by being on as well, because your insights are amazing. And say hi to Aya. Me and her, we're just beautiful lovers.
Aww.
And while I don't have many ceremonies, I don't need to. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just say hi to her. She's awesome. Okay.
We're right there with you. I think we drink once every 3 or 4 months at this point. You get to a point to where you kind of transcend it and you don't need it as much to get the insight. I feel like I'm tapped in all the time now. Yeah. But it's nice to go visit as a reminder of, hey, this is all just a ride anyways. So kiss the one you love right now, because you never know when the last time is going to be.
Love you guys. We'll see you next week.